All right, everybody. How are we doing? How are we doing? We doing well? All right, guys. We've got to make some predictions. All right? Here's the problem. As I hear it, chapter 1078 spoilers are already floating around. This is driving me fucking insane. How is it the whole let me talk about this for a second before we get into Egghead Island predictions. The whole cycle of One Piece chapter releases, it's so fucked right now. It's actually driving me crazy. It makes the whole process of being a One Piece fan so much less fun. Let alone being a content creator, which I guess is my own personal gripe. But like, it's just everything. It's you can't enjoy and okay, order of operations. Let's get the stream likes to 100. That's the most important thing. After that, we talk about the chapter. Not the chapter. You know what I meant. It's just Chainsaw Man Part 2 is getting good. Yeah, I mean, it's getting really good. It's good. I'm looking forward to the next chapter. Is it bi-weekly releases right now? Am I crazy? Is it bi-weekly or weekly releases? Because I usually let them pile up a little bit, then I go back and read them. So I just caught up actually yesterday. Yeah. Mods, be very much on the lookout for spoilers for this one. Anybody... I mean, the thing is, a mod that... Hopefully one of the mods has read the spoilers, so I assume... Because I know that the traitor is revealed. I know that much, that the traitor is revealed this chapter. I don't know who the traitor is. I'm not gonna... I got a sense about something. I'm not gonna say what that sense is here or there. But I'm not going to pretend I don't know that the traitor is revealed this chapter. Which means that most people, or some people probably do know who the traitor is. So just mods be extra... Hopefully some mod actually knows who the spoiler is. So that mod, please be on the lookout. Ray Uchiha, thank you for gifting a membership. Very much appreciated. Sometimes it's weekly, sometimes it's bi-weekly. You're talking about Chainsaw Man. That's great. Why is it sometimes bi-weekly? What does that even mean? Okay, so the spoiler situation right now. It's gotten really bad. I don't know how much you guys care about it. Maybe I care about it a little bit more because I have to, talk about this series a lot. But I guess for you guys, isn't it just the fucking worst that you can't... Because what really changes, right? So if all spoilers were removed from existence, right? If all spoilers were removed from existence... all that's happening is that we're waiting a week each time for a chapter, right? That's nothing changes. We gain nothing from spoilers, right? Nothing improves by having spoilers. You get to read the spoilers a little earlier, but all that means is so you know what happens in the next chapter, right? So let's say by Tuesday you know what's going to happen in the next chapter. You're still waiting a week to get the spoilers for the next chapter, right? So you're still waiting a week to find out what happens in the next chapter. No matter what, the spoilers aren't moving time faster. It's not like you're getting information really faster. You're just choosing to set your cycle a little bit earlier than everybody else's, but you're getting this shittier version of the same thing that everybody else gets to enjoy who doesn't look at spoilers at all, right? If nobody looked at spoilers and we just got, if spoilers did not exist and we just got a straight up chapter every, whatever it is, Friday, right? Thursday at this point. Wednesday if you read fucking OP scans. Which I'm having to think about. I'm having to think about OP scans because at this point it's just, they're so much earlier. Their translations are getting less shitty in my opinion. We'll get to that in a second. We'll have an OP scans versus TCB scans discussion in a second. I am loyal to TCB, but, at a certain point it's like, where's it? If the whole chapter discussion cycle is so fucked, it's just like I have to start thinking about, okay, is it smartest to be doing OP scans or TCB scans or OP scans? Because at this point, I read OP scans myself because they're out there. It's just harder to resist when the spoilers are out there and people are already talking about them. It's already, people comment on my videos and stuff like that. People at me and things like that on Twitter. And the spoilers are so rampant that I'm not just going to turn off social media and stuff for a full week. It's just not a thing. You know what I'm saying? So it's just why what's the point? We don't gain anything. If you're on the spoiler cycle, right? So you're ready to eat up spoilers as soon as they come out. Okay, you know what's going to happen in the chapter by Tuesday, but you read it in a shitty paragraph, bullet by bullet point format. and now you're waiting another week for the next chapter information to come out, basically, right? Once you actually read the chapter, your enjoyment of it is neutered because you already know what's going to happen. You already read the outline, so any sense of surprise, suspense, all of that is basically gone for you. You're just basically seeing how your outline, your Wikipedia summary plays out, right? So that's what's happening if you read the spoilers actively. Then you're on a week cycle, right? You're still like the rest of us. You're waiting a week to find out the next thing, and then you're ruining the chapter for yourself, essentially, and going out of your way to ruin it for other people, probably. That's the bigger thing. I mean, like, if you enjoy the spoilers, you enjoy the spoilers. I shouldn't talk negatively about people who enjoy spoilers. I get it. You know, at the end of the day, there's certain things that people like, you just can't help it, right? It's like an addiction. You got to find out, right? But people who talk about the spoilers, that's the bigger problem. Anybody who has to talk about the spoilers beforehand, it's so shitty. Like, what is wrong with you? Just keep it to your... It's so shitty, man. It's so shitty. It's so shitty. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to be done about it other than... it's the enablers at the end of the day that piss me off. Whoever the people... Because you can't... You can't stop shitty people from being shitty, but it's the enablers that really fuck it up, right? OP scans getting their shit out so early with trash quality. I mean, it's not even that trash at this point is the thing, so how much can I even blame them? Although they are kind of scummy, like the types of things that they've tried to do. Just, they clearly prioritize speed over quality, and they got to the point where they're trying to make people pay for subscriptions to get the chapters out even earlier at even shittier quality, I can assume. I don't like the way that they operate, but it is what it is. But then who are these other people that are dropping spoilers, like, so early, like... The random people that I see, like the Twitter accounts and stuff like that post it, and then people tag me and stuff like that. Who are those people? Wrench Dodger 2000 says avoiding spoilers can get exhausting. I agree with Morse though. Why read text if you can just read the scans? They're so much better, lol. I mean, the thing is, okay, like I can't say willpower is a thing that not everybody... People have to varying degrees for varying things, right? If you really, really, really enjoy One Piece, then it can be hard to not peek ahead. I know I've looked at spoilers for things. I think One Piece I generally try and avoid, unless it's for something content related, like, oh, I might have to change a video that's coming out because a spoiler just released that. I think you guys have literally seen me go, I think like last week, actively go check to see if a spoiler meant that a video just is no longer applicable or something like that, right? So there's things like that, but there's definitely things like with movies coming up, and I really want to know if something happens or something like that. That's not unfair. I think people, obviously people are going to do that. People are going to look ahead, but it's just like the need to share. The need to share is annoying. Shrek is Love says, what about Redon? I mean, I don't even know. He's kind of the main source, right? He's the one that everyone trusts. What does he get out of it? Does he get anything monetary? Does he get anything? What is he gaining out of it? If he's not gaining anything, then I just view him as kind of shitty, right? If it's like his job, because I'm not going to fault OP scans or TCB scans or whatever. At the end of the day, they're getting scans out earlier for us, I guess, right? You can say that I don't think TCB scans sacrifices on quality. I think their translations are more enjoyable to read than Viz's shitty ass weird AI generated translations, which are better for accuracy, as everyone always says, but accuracy is not, you don't want to read the way characters talk is like, it's really fucking weird. It's really bizarre. TCB scans I appreciate because they're the most readable translations for me. OP scans, it's faster, and I get it. At the end of the day, you're providing people a product for they're making ad money off of it or whatever. I get it, right? But what about the spoilers, people? Can anybody explain? Clout? Yeah, just clout and notoriety. That's just so weird to me because it's just like you're just a what notoriety? What do you? I mean, we all know the name Redon, I guess, at this point, but what notoriety even is that? You can't. You're just a anonymous username, right? That's basically ruining the One Piece community's collective reading experience for no reason. I mean, it's an anonymous account, right? Silverbum says, I agree with Lork, but because he was late, he's wrong. Listen, on the topic of spoilers, at least it's better to be late, but I was trying to equate it to how rushing out content isn't good, but this isn't the same thing, is it? Okay. AJ says, I love One Piece. I look at spoilers. I'm on my third time rewatching the anime. Imagination, I like to figure out plot points. Again, I'm sorry if I went after people for that. That's me just talking, right? Off the top. It's fine if you look at spoilers. Obviously, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. It's the spoiling other people that's the weird thing. Spoiling other people, that's just shitty. Mr. Crescent says, yes, I spoiled a Japanese cartoon comic for Cloud. Exactly. Goldie A says, TCB has better quality scans on the art. OP scans is sloppy with the lining. Okay, so here's where I'm at. OP scans I read at this point because the reality is that it's close enough, and I just need to, there's so much information already floats around about the chapter. I would rather read it as soon as it's in a readable form than wait for the slightly better version, because the experience is going to be close to the same, right? I don't cover OP scans. I cover TCB scans because I don't know what most people read at the moment. I feel like most people prefer TCB. I would rather support the better translation group and everything like that. But we're at a point, you guys have to understand from my perspective, which is basically that because spoilers are so rampant, my production cycle for a video goes something like this. And we'll get into Egghead Island in a second. I just want to share this a little bit. My production cycle for video basically goes like this, right? Read the chapter, write video around this time, basically also probably doing my chapter review, streaming the Thursday stream for you guys, everything like that. Basically around Thursdays when Thursday, now sort of Wednesday, getting ahead of it a bit because OP scans is a thing, writing and getting everything prepared. Then recorded. Friday, I'm shipping it out basically, so the editor gets it Friday, the images guy gets it Friday. Over the weekend, thumbnail guy and everything like that. Over the weekend, video gets produced. Monday, it comes back. I do my final checks and everything like that. Tuesday, it comes out. Okay? The problem is that basically, with the rate things are going, at this point, by that next Monday, spoilers are out for the next chapter. Spoilers are definitely out by the next Tuesday when the video is actually dropping. The next chapter itself is about to drop the very next day after the video drops. I know you guys don't care that much because it's like, which we don't care about your video production cycle and stuff, but it's just it's something that I now have to think about, which is I do want to put out content that's topical and discuss. Like, I feel like if I drop an interesting video, that can quickly be overshadowed by a new chapter coming out really early or buzz about spoilers and stuff like that. Even if the video has nothing to do with the content of the chapter, it's usually that people are going to be more interested in discussing whatever the fuck is going on currently, right? So that incentivizes me less as a content creator to really put a lot of time and effort into a video that, let's say, it's like got nothing to do with whatever's about to come out in the next chapter. Let's say I want to talk about, some thematic thing or some character thing of something that's not related to the chapter. By the time the video is coming out, all discussion and interest is about the new chapter, spoilers, etc., etc. So it has me basically being like, okay, if I covered OP scans, then I could do everything a little bit earlier, do chapter reviews, streams, etc. earlier, get the video out much faster and everything like that during the in-between time of chapters. It's kind of like the in-between time of chapters just become this really murky period where it's just like, all right, new chapter finally came out, but all the spoilers for the next chapter already are also coming out. So it's like, where's a window to just discuss, interesting stuff, I'm going to think about it. Let me ask you guys this. How many of you guys read... Do you read OP scans when it comes out? That's a question. Yes. No. Comes out. Or... Do you read... Okay, let me ask this. Do you read spoilers or OP scans? Yeah, let me ask, do you read spoilers or... No, I'll ask, do you read OP scans? The nicest thing would be if TCB was somehow able to just start getting their stuff out a little bit earlier. But, ideally on Wednesday as well. But I understand that's just not realistic. See, this is where it's tough. It looks like it's about 50%. Papa Dog Circus is I try not to, but sometimes I give in. Yeah, that's where I used to be, and then eventually I was just like, I give up. They're out there. The spoilers are out there. The chapter's close enough. It's literally 50% of you guys are OP scans, right? Well, I don't want to move streams if there's people that would ostracize, right? If 50% of people wanted to wait for okay, so I can't move streams. This is too complicated, man. It's too complicated. All right. Justin Holland, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 5 months. 1, I like to believe the Minks will return in Elbaf. 2, do you believe Luffy and Morgans could be allies of convenience? Are you going to see the Mario film? Okay. Do I believe the Minks... Thanks for being a Yonko tier member. The Minks will return in Elbaf. I don't know if the Minks will return in Elbaf, but we'll definitely get the Minks at some point, right? The Minks were one of my favorite races for the brief amount of time that we got to know them. I think that they just faded into obscurity a little bit, and I think people didn't love the way that they were used in Wano. I think was a little... I mean, it's hard to say. I think people just didn't care as much by the time Wano rolled around because I feel like they were given courtesy moments. So Inuarashi and Nekomamushi didn't really do anything for all of Wano, but then they were getting their Jack and Perispera fight. The Perispera fight was random as fuck, but that's what happened. And then Carrot was just a confusing addition to everybody. Do you believe Luffy and Morgans could be allies of convenience? I talked about this in a previous stream when somebody brought up Morgans. Morgans is in a very, very interesting situation right now where he has the potential to shape all of Luffy's story. I think it's a great idea that basically Oda kind of got to the source of all One Piece news in the world, because we see at this point that people basically, the World Economic Times, like the newspaper that everyone's been reading and been shown reading throughout One Piece, that's the newspaper that basically defines how everybody interprets all actions that happen in the world. They just believe whatever the hell Big News Morgans writes, right? He has a literal monopoly on the news, which means there's a absolute monopoly on how every character in the story is perceived. And we know that so much in One Piece comes down to reputation versus actuality, right? What type of person is this character being spun as versus, in the public eye versus are they actually a good person? So Morgans, at the end of the story, it's ultimately going to be in Morgans' hands whether this narrative of Luffy versus the world government, right? What does he go down as? Will the world know him as a hero, or will he be this pirate that basically screwed up the entire world order, right? Or maybe it might be a bit of both. We don't know. So I don't know about allies. It would be, I think that Vivi could be, a voice in Morgans' ear that definitely could influence Morgans to maybe a more partial or sympathetic view to Luffy, which I think is a great pairing for Vivi at this point in the story, or for Morgans at this point in the story. Am I going to see the Mario film? I'm actually... So the first couple trailers didn't really sell me. I think I'm not... I'm going to say this. I think that with most video game stuff... Okay. No, let me say the positive thing first. The most recent trailer that dropped sold me. I'm down. It looks like they really, really, really are leaning into everything that makes Mario. I mean, the fact that they're incorporating Mario Kart in such a big way, Rainbow Road, the Fireball power-ups, the super power-ups. I think that it looks really, really, really cool, and just honestly, it got me hyped seeing the ending part of it, which was, I don't know if you saw the trailer. I don't think this is a big spoiler, but just the ending of the most recent trailer. It was a race happening on Rainbow Road. Mario's being tossed from one track to a lower track, right? He's jumping around, hitting people with shells, landing on Koopas. It was hype. The music too. I think the way that they're doing an epic sort of version of Mario music at Mario Music, I think it honestly sounds really, really good. So I think the concept, I'm very much... I think it'll be a cool movie to watch. I actually genuinely really, really want to see it in theaters. The thing that is throwing me a little bit is just that I feel like I personally don't care for origin stories, especially when it comes to video game stuff. It's just the fish out of water thing is so tedious and boring at this point, right? I think that, and I'm not sold on Chris Pratt as Mario either. He just doesn't carry the it feels like a different character to me, right? But yeah, the fish out of water thing is just so tiresome. That's the only thing that really held me. But it's a kids movie at the end of the day. That's one of the easiest things to fall back on for kids movies. Um, yeah, it's just he's got to learn. I don't know, some shit. It's probably some shit about like how he's got to learn how to be a hero or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the story. It's just dull. It's just, I don't know. It's fucking Mario. Mario's honestly badass. Just let him be Mario, He doesn't have to be, don't have to lean into him being a plumber from the start type thing. But that's the way they're gonna do it. All right, guys, let's get the stream likes to 200. But everything else about it, right? Bowser, the way that they're bringing the Mario world to life in a action movie sort of way at the same time, I think, and the way that they're taking off so many, Mario references, Easter eggs, homages, I think that's really, really great. So I think it'll be a good movie overall. The FPS King Gaming says, Mr. Morch, I'm high on spring break, visiting my sister, watching regular show. Oh, I was supposed to watch regular show. Like, I'm supposed to watch / read Pokemon Adventures. Love the content. What do you expect the Straw Hats to do about the Buster Call? Yeah, we're supposed to be doing some Egghead Island predictions. Alright? Mario killed Shaka. Okay. People care about spoilers for the Mario. It's just one scene in the Mario movie. It's not like the whole thing. Alright, guys. Let's talk about Egghead Island. Okay, so. First of all, tell me we've got a mod in here that can stop actual spoil. I don't even want to get into the who the killer is thing because it's gonna get spoiled in here somewhere, right? Youngling53 says, my man's not played a modern Mario game. He thinks Mario's badass. No, not badass. It's just that he doesn't have much to, it's not like he's this. Okay, what I mean by Mario being badass is just that you don't usually have to do too much character work with Mario, where he's got to grow from A to B as a person over the course of a video game, right? He's Mario, right? He's gonna do his thing from the start to finish, right? And I think that I much enjoy that. People say that doesn't translate well to movies, but I just don't think that that's true. I think that that's something that some studios tend to assume, especially when it comes to kids movies, Rock Nation Brunch, thanks a lot. I made a Reddit theory a month ago that Saint J will force Bonnie to temporarily age up the Seraphim by threatening Kuma's life, causing the Strats to be completely overwhelmed. I love that theory. I think these are the type of Egghead predictions I like. Let's stick to that. I don't know how much I want to go into the traitor stuff. I think at the very least the Seraphim the Seraphim being aged up, we don't know how long it would take organically, right? So let's say that Bonnie didn't use this ability, right? Let's say that Bonnie didn't use this ability. In that case, how long would it take the Seraphim to reach their organic normal ages? Would it still be fast, or do we really need Bonnie involved here? Because otherwise, I think Saturn doing that would be amazing. Because they're having so much trouble with the Seraphim right now, right? Advanced Conquerors Hockey notwithstanding, we haven't seen the evidence of that just yet. But they're having so much trouble with the Seraphim right now. I would go back to the idea that, I've been saying the Seraphim are going to be really, really strong. Like, the Seraphim are going to be endgame opponents. I think that works really, really well with the way that Oda's setting them up at the moment, Young Smokey VP17, thanks for the how's it going sticker. It's going well. Spade says, you think Luffy will have a big fight this arc, like against Kizaru, or will it be more like Zoe where there is no big battle? The fact that we're already delving into the Strats versus the Seraphim, I do feel like we're going to get a big fight, because it's been much more action-packed than Zoe already, right? We had Luffy versus Lucci to start off with, then Zoro versus Kaku. Then we're having Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji versus Seraphim. There's a lot happening right now already, and it's clearly been hyped up that Kizaru and the Marines is going to be a big deal that's about to drop. So it would feel a little weird if the middle section of the arc has more action than the actual big climax that it feels like we're building to. PB Tenchi says studies show that spoilers actually increase enjoyment. I like spoilers because it's like a midweek excitement to tide me over while I wait for the chapter. Yeah, and I've been saying this from the start of the stream. It's perfectly, if you enjoy spoilers, that's great. The only thing I'm talking about is people that go out of their way to spoil other people that would rather not be spoiled, you know? Because most other people don't want to be spoiled. The one thing is that I've heard of that study too. So there is a study that, or studies have shown or whatever, that people do actually enjoy the main content more after being spoiled. But I would say that I wonder in those studies, is it people who are voluntarily choosing to spoil themselves or people that are accidentally getting spoiled? You know what I mean? Because I'm sure that the people, it's a psychological study. I'm sure that they have the right parameters and everything, but I wonder how much that's self-selected, because there's a certain type of person who they already like spoiling themselves. So naturally, those type of people, they like knowing what's going to happen ahead. So they like to read up on what's going to happen ahead, and then they like seeing that play out on screen or on paper or whatever it may be. That's a certain type of person, I would assume. I don't know if that's something that applies to everybody. I don't know if everybody likes finding out off some offhand Twitter post or something like that, like, hey, this is going to happen. I feel like a lot of people would feel a little disappointed by that, and then a lot of people probably feel less impacted by a surprise moment or something like that comes down the line, you know? Nutty says BTW, Usopp is the traitor, LMAO. Just TJ says, nah, I deadass go out of my way to spoil myself. I can't wait another week or break. Okay, does anyone have an interesting prediction for Egghead Island that has nothing to do with the traitor? Because let's say that the traitor gets figured out, right? As far as we know, the traitor is getting figured out next chapter, basically, right? What happens after that? Do we get do we go into the Bonnie Kuma flashback? B, do we get Kizaru and everyone arriving? C, do we get Saturn basically going apeshit on the island? I guess that coincides with Kizaru and everyone arriving. But do we think that it's basically going to be the Straw Hats fighting their way out or escaping? Because they got 100 battleships on the way. And that's not... You know what's funny? A lot of people talked about... what do you call? A lot of people talked about... No, the funny thing is that lots of people throwing out random predictions at the moment, so I can't really... I don't know what the actual thing is. A lot of people are talking about, or they were talking about how a Buster Call, it was thrown out so many times, like, oh, do you think Egghead Island will get Buster Called? Do you think this island will get Buster Called? Do you think the Straw Hats will get Buster Called? It's funny because I don't think people realize that ever since the 2-year time skip, and I've said this many times on stream whenever people bring up the Buster Call is not relevant anymore. It stopped being relevant the moment the 2-year time skip happened. They could have had a Buster Call called on them at any island. Punk Hazard, Dressrosa, Fishman Island, wherever. There's not a single island in New World where it would have been anything more than an inconvenience to the Straw Hats. There are Straw Hats right now. No, forget right now. Right now it's obvious. There are Straw Hats from the start of time skip that could have probably soloed a Buster Call. I'm serious. Like Gear 4th Luffy could probably right out of the gates post time skip could probably have soloed 5 Vice Admirals. The Vice Admirals are not that strong. There are some that are particularly strong, but overall Gear 4th Luffy would mostly pretty much ragdoll the majority of them, right? If they're sending some particularly strong ones, then maybe there's some trouble. But at the end of the day, they're not that strong in the grand scheme of things. Like, several battleships is not a big deal. 5 Vice Admirals is not a big deal to the Straw Hats at this point. Even if you think that's a stretch that Gear 4th Luffy could beat 5 Vice Admirals, which I really don't think it is. Considering, the bar for... there's some Vice Admirals, like... Many Vice Admirals are... You guys might be thinking of the strongest Vice Admirals. Vice Admirals like Bastille, that Sabo, like, basically zero-diffed. Or that Vice Admiral Maynard that Bartolomeo low-diffed in the bathroom. Smoker was a Vice Admiral. Like, Gear 4th Luffy would destroy Smoker. Gear 4th Luffy would destroy Virgo. The Vice Admirals are a joke to the Straw Hats post-time skip, in my opinion. So Buster Call was never a big deal. This is what makes sense at this point, right? This is a Yonko crew. So they're sending hundreds of battleships, like 100 battleships and an admiral. And this is a real fight. This is a real fight. And you know what's crazy is that if this is the Straw Hats just sailing around on their own, if they were like Shanks, who seems to actually travel with a good fleet backing him up at times, right? As we see at Elbaf and everything like that. Whether or not that's a regular thing, or that's just he chose to have a fleet accompany him to Elbaf in particular. If Luffy actually really wanted his fleet and everything like that, then there's no question that they could take, an admiral and all of this 100 battleships. I'm pretty sure. If he had his grand fleet, if he had some allies thrown in there, it would be... I'm pretty sure they could do it. It's because just right now they're so short on numbers that I think it could be tight. Victor says thoughts on the missing third races, Big Mom. Okay. So I got a little lost with the 3 races thing because Lunarians we know is 1. Then we knew that what was the other one? I swear we knew 2 of them, right? We knew 2 of them. We all thought that giants were 1. But then it turned out that it wasn't. Fuck, what was it? Can somebody fill me in? What were the other 2 races? I might need more mods. I haven't added mods in a bit. Growth Stonks says Emu carries the title of Saint and Great and is likely based off Saint Constantine the Great, who was proclaimed Emperor of Rome in York, England. Okay. Alright, this is getting ridiculous. At this point, I'm pretty sure this is just annoying. Giants, Onis. Oh, she doesn't have Onis. Oh, Kuma's race. That was the guess that people had. People had the guess that, yeah, Mr. Crescent, can you please just ban from here on, basically? Hopefully some people haven't picked up on it at this point. Vampires? Vampires, it feels like... because the thing is that anyone that she doesn't have, it should be rare, right? So the rare races are obviously Lunarians. Then, as we understand, right... the Lunarians, Kuma's race, it sounds like if he is another race, right, which seems to have been implied, that is fairly rare, and then the Onis seem like an extremely rare race, right? Vampires don't seem that rare, because it seems like Lulusia Kingdom has multiple vampires. The royalty there, obviously, Stussy. There's nothing that would sort of block Big Mom from being able to add them to her collection, as far as we know, right? Bruh says, lol, Mord, you hate European viewers, don't you? Oh, you guys don't know. Daylight savings is a thing. Who doesn't know? Daylight savings happened. You guys are I don't even know. What does this mean, right? So does this mean that things move forward or some stuff got screwed up for you guys, I assume, basically. Remix King asked any Pokemon Adventures updates. Do I have to bust out Wikipedia again? Fill you guys in on what's been going on in Pokemon Adventures? Okay, hold on. So last we left off. Did I say Wikipedia? I meant the mangareader.com, where I read Pokemon Adventures. Last we left off. Where did we leave off? Oh yeah, we defeated Zapmolkuno, the made-up Pokemon. How do Pokemon even fuse? Is this canon? Is Pokemon Adventures canon? Is this stuff that can actually happen? Can Pokemon fuse? I've never heard of Pokemon fusing. He was challenged. Red was challenged by Bruno of the Elite Four. The Elite Four was gonna lure him in and use him to get information on Giovanni's whereabouts. I know about Giovanni. Giovanni is the boss of Team Rocket. I know about Giovanni. Okay, this is canon. They need his Earth badge. Red has an Earth badge at this point. Only Red's Pika, managed to escape. He has a Pikachu? I mean, of course he has a Pikachu. Red having, okay, something. Yellow, blue, green. Why are they all named after colors? Can someone explain this to me? And why doesn't Yellow have a Pikachu? Can someone explain why are they all named after colors? Megazard says there's some fusing, but the bird fusion is fake. What does that mean? What does it mean it's fake? East Blue Drew says if Lafitte says room, I'm going crazy. Lafitte's not gonna use room. Come on, they're not just gonna kill off Law like that. Names of the games. Pokemon. What? They're named after the name of the games. I don't get it. Alright. Mr. Sin says virgin equals Ash, Chad equals red. Ash is like 10 years old. He is probably a virgin. I would like to think. How old's Red? Pokemon Adventures. How old is Red? Although Ash does pick up a new girl every year. Red is 11 years old. Oh, and he's 4'11". He's not a Chad. Although, how tall are you supposed to be when you're like 11 years old? I'm trying to think. I know how tall I was. Okay, I know exactly how tall I was in 8th grade. Because 8th grade I was leaving middle school. Because I knew I was the exact same height as this one girl, and she was 5'3". So I was 5'3" in middle school. So when I was... Okay, hold on. Math. How tall must I have been when I was... I was probably less than 5 feet tall when I was in 6th grade. I think I was probably less than 5 feet tall. That sounds so short, though. Are you supposed to... Can you imagine... Man, I can't imagine going back and being... Whatever. That's crazy. Papa Dog Suckers is 4'11" is tall for an 11-year-old. Okay, never mind. Red, Red is a Chad. All right. Please see the... Soga King says, Morge, please see the One Piece Volume 105 trailer. It's amazing. Oh, people don't know what middle school is? What's the One Piece Volume 105 trailer? We get volume trailers now? They're not anime. Wait, there was a new JoJo's chapter this week? Oh, man. Victor says Ash is pretty much a creep if you think about it. Wait, why? Why? Why is Ash a creep? Isn't that Brock? Wasn't that Brock's role? Yeah, people don't know about middle school. I forget that some places have like junior high, some places have other stuff. Okay, hold on. Let me take a look at the One Piece Volume 105 trailer. Actually, no, this is one of those things that might get me banned. This might get me banned. So Cook says, hi, Morge. Have you ever been to Australia? No, I would like to go to Australia at some point, though. Australia seems pretty cool. Mohit Metal, thank you very much. All right, you know what we're going to do? Here. To steer things away from the, to steer things towards the Egghead Island conversation, but somehow steer things away from the trader conversation, right? We're going to do this. Here's what we're going to do. All right? All right. Make sure these settings are all good. Testing. Audio's still good. All right. I'm so fluid with the transitions and stuff at this point. It's crazy. All right. So, here's how it works. Yeah, Henchman Me 97 says grade school to middle school to high school. Yeah, that's basically the way we do it in many places in America. Parvision said I'd stay here. What does that mean? Okay, so here's the things. All right, we're gonna do it like this. All right. Let's see if we can figure out. Okay, here are the things that I have questions about that are not trader related. All right. Who fights Kizaru / will they fight Kizaru / will Kizaru be permanently defeated? That's question 1 that I have. Why is Saturn here and what happens? When do we get Garp? When do we get Garp? When do we get more Shanks? Let's split it up into 3 categories. All right? I want suggestions. Let's start with Kizaru discussion. Gonzai ATCH says manly men are strong enough to go to therapy. Here's what's kind of crazy. All right, at this point, I know so many people that go to therapy. I feel like 1 out of every 2-3 people I know, 1 out of every 2-ish people that I know, have a therapist. It's kind of crazy. All right, I don't know. This is not to make fun of it. Okay, I'm getting to my point. Let me get to my point. Right, with the new widespread rise of mental awareness and mental health and all that stuff, I feel like therapists are just making mad cash off of everything, right? They're just like, holy shit, I think like everybody's just decided that they need a therapist. They must be rolling in it at this point, right? Going to the way things have changed, where now talking about, oh, I have anxiety or depression, or I suffer from, this or that, or I think I feel all the stuff that people have nowadays, right? It almost feels like if you go to therapy, you sound like a more interesting person. Okay, this is not to say it in any sort of a bad way or accusatory way, but I'm trying to explain where I'm coming from, which is I've gotten to the point, I know so many people that go to therapy. I've tried to think, wait, would going to therapy be like an interesting thing for me to do? But I'm like, well, I shouldn't go just because it's an interesting thing, So I've literally tried to sit down and be like, okay, are there things that would this be a cool experience? But that's not a good reason to go. Do I it's almost like we're at a point where it gets blasted so much about like mental health, mental awareness and stuff like that it feels like you should find yourself a reason to go to therapy just because you're supposed to be doing it, and you're almost not doing something right or not taking care of yourself properly or something if you're not doing it. But I'm just like, but there's nothing that I feel like there's nothing that I feel like that way about myself. So it would just be doing it to force it. But it's made me think multiple times. Like, I've actually tried to sit down multiple times and tried to think, like, maybe I could find some reason to go to therapy or something like that. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? But there would need to be something to, like, help yourself over, right? No, it's not to go to have a good time, but I guess it's more like you sound like a more interesting person if you're like, well, I have to go to my therapist, or I went and figured some stuff out for my therapist, right? But I feel like you need to feel like to have a legitimate reason to go, wouldn't you need to feel like there's something like internal that you're trying to figure out, or some internal way that you're feeling something's off or something like that? And I don't feel like that in any way. But at the same time, I'm like, well, do you need to first, or is it just smart to go? McDonald says, create your own misery, then go to therapy. Dante says, Morge doesn't want to be left out. Yeah, that's kind of true. All right. Okay, let's go with this. Booty Scootin says, help yourself cope with the raid failing. No, if the raid failed, then I wouldn't have to go. Help myself cope with the raid failing. I mean, I was sad after the raid didn't fail. I was like, fuck. Well, now I feel like disappointed about the arc. I feel disappointed about all of the stuff that I put time talking into for so long. People are being mean to me online. But that's not like therapy stuff. As far as I understand, therapy stuff is like stuff that you can't figure out on your own, right? That's just stuff that like you kind of just, you're bummed about it, but you get over that after a little bit, right? I mean, it still sucks that people still bring that up on, like, people, right? I see Eric Torlato in chat, and I had to pay him $1,000 for losing. But that's just, that's just stuff that's just stuff, right? That's not, like, actually affecting my life, Papa Dog says, are there any character traits you want to change about yourself? I used to go to my therapist to figure out my next step to grow as a person. I'm always of the opinion personally that like I think my views might be a little harsher. No. Actually, it's not harsher because they're not. I think everyone is different, and the ways that people are interested in growing, etc., are all different. I've been lucky enough, I think, in my life to have, I guess, different mentors and things like that to help me see different sides of myself. Not like literal mentors or stuff like the people I pay, but like people that I respected or have taken me under their wing and stuff like that. So I'm very satisfied with the way I am as a person. So for me, anything that I want to grow in is more tangible stuff. And tangible stuff is not therapy stuff. There's internal versus external, right? So there's things that, a therapist is not going to help explain to me, hey, like, to scale your business this far, you need to be doing this and this. They don't really know that stuff, right? So for me, everything that I'm interested in is basically, because everyone can grow in different ways, but there's things that are internal versus external, right? So, for me, I think a lot that I'm interested in or what I care about in life is mostly external based. Crossfregat says, Kizaru versus Sanji plus Zoro will either strengthen or weaken Green Bull's reputation. Okay. I agree. No, will it? How does it have a bearing on Green Bull's reputation? Luffy fighting 2 Seraphims while this happens would be great also. I just can't see Luffy fighting 2 Seraphims. Okay, so let's say theory 1. Luffy fights Seraphims while Sanji / Zoro fight Kizaru. I don't know how I feel about that, right? I just don't see that happening. I can't see Oda ever sidelining them in a singular arc like that. But at the same time, I really hope that it's not Luffy versus Kizaru because it's just not an interesting matchup to me at this point as much. I don't know. KidSmitty94 says, low % chance revolutionaries fight Kizaru. Shako, no, come on. Shako was talking to Dragon at the start of the arc. That's really not interesting to me because I mean, would you guys rather see the revolutionaries fight fight Kizaru and stuff, or would you rather see the Straw Hats fight Kizaru? I would love to see Zoro or Sanji or the Straw Hats collectively fight Kizaru right now because, again, while I don't see Oda sidelining Luffy, it's just like we're at a point in the story where it feels like the Straw Hats should really be getting cooler matchups, I suppose, and Luffy has much less to prove right now, if you know what I mean. Like, Luffy just went up against Kaido, The Outback Pandas, holy shit, always good to see you, man. Missed this in last stream, don't worry about it, but just want to say I'm looking forward to this killer fight being animated this week because I think it's my favorite fight in Wano. Unironically, my favorite Supernova over even Beige. I like Killer a lot more than Kid. I grew to like Killer a lot over not Hawkins. Well, yeah, over Hawkins, over Wano. And Killer versus Hawkins is also one of my favorite fights in Onigashima because I just thought I thought that in a very quick snippet of a chapter, we got to see a really good parallel to Zoro, right? Killer's dedication to Kid. God knows what Killer sees in him. God knows what Killer sees in him, but he sees something, right? Misguided as Killer may be. But just the level of, I guess, Killer's a smart character too. So we saw a lot of loyalty, grit, and just straight up intelligence in that quick fight. And he's very strong. He quickly overpowered Hawkins as soon as he knew what was up. So, I don't know. I liked a lot that we got to see. It was a great character chapter for a very minor character. I would go so far as to say this. It's so sad to me that Killer got a much better show. The writing around Killer in that singular chapter was much more significant than anything that we got for Kid. We never had really a chapter dedicated to Kid like that. You know what I mean? Like to just Kid. In a way that's not just a badass moment, of him, a badass as far as we could say for Kid, or him, attacking Yonko or using a new move or, breaking out the railgun or awakening. I'm talking about a real, like the Killer chapter was mainly writing focused. You know what I mean? There was more so writing than around his character than anything because the fight section of that chapter was very quick. I think it was over in a single attack practically. So I do hope to see more of that character. Yeah, it's just shocking that we got that for Killer but not really for Kid. Sean Easton says, don't know if the other mods are having this issue. Thank you, but thanks for telling me, but I'm getting an error message when removing comments / banning people. Also making cornbread. I don't know why you're getting an error message when you're making cornbread, but as for the removing comments / banning people, can another mod, what do you call, confirm this? If this is just a Sean Easton thing or something like that? Let me make sure that Sean is... Hold on. Are any other moderators having this issue? Sean, I'm just gonna hit add you as moderator again just to make sure. Maybe there's something was off. I see Eric was able to delete somebody. Keenan, thank you. Thank you. With the beginning chapters of Egghead saying that you can't override primal desires with the shark, does that mean there's a chance the green blood will cause one of the seraphims to betray the world government? What does that mean? Can't override primal desires. Yeah, I remember the shark. The green blood. Because the green blood is from devil fruits, and devil fruits are desire-based. I don't know. That's tricky to say. I mean, maybe we don't know how much the green blood influences things. Although one interesting thing that people have been picking up on, I think, with the green blood so far, is that it seems as though the Lunarian Seraphim abilities cannot work in conjunction with devil fruit abilities being used at the same time from the green blood. Name named. Thank you. Sorry, super off topic. I don't care. I've heard Bleach anime falls off towards the middle. Do you think it's still worth watching? Oh, interesting. Okay. I love questions like this. I like being off topic sometimes when it's stuff that I think is interesting. Real quick, I'll address this. I don't know how far you are. Oh, maybe you're not far at all. I think that the Soul Society... Okay. I think the Soul Society arc, and you'll know when you get to it, is one of the best shonen anime arcs ever that I have ever seen. Yeah, for sure. One of the best, most pure shonen greatness. It gives you everything you want from shonen, right? When I think shonen, what do I really, really want out of a great shonen arc? I want to see lots of really emotional, empowering sort of camaraderie, friendship, bonds, loyalty, that sort of thing. I want to see heroes overcoming great odds, right? High tension, badass fights, badass power-ups, and most importantly, I want to feel really, really energized, and I guess empowered really is the main word, I think, from seeing, just in a very straightforward manner, good rising to a challenge in a really epic way to overcome insurmountable evil, and the steps, the struggle, etc. to get there. I think that shonen does that really, really well. The more sort of raw, badass moments it can pull out, the more sort of, inspirational emotion that it can bring out in you, I think the better it is. And in that regard, I think I put Soul Society right up there with something like, many, many One Piece arcs, I personally think Enies Lobby is the peak of that type of shonen writing for me personally. I think Soul Society is amazing in that regard as well. So I would say Bleach is really, really good. Then after that, I think that it's still worth watching because it's a cool, badass fighting series. I think it doesn't reach the same sort of emotional or dramatic highs for me, but it has lots of cool plot twists, lots of cool abilities, fights, etc. from then on. I think some people can find it gets a little too, like, Kubo might get up too far up his own ass in some moments and stuff like that. And then a lot of people feel that the current anime arc, 1,000 Year Blood War, is one of the best produced anime arcs ever. I personally think that the story of the 1,000 Year Blood War drops off significantly in the latter half, but the anime is not even at the latter half yet. So, as far as you're concerned, I think it's worth watching, basically. Rei Uchiha says, nobody's going to fight Kizaru because he's a revolutionary spy and works for Vegapunk. No, man, we don't need so many more characters on the good guy side. We've got so many. I'll put down nobody fights Kizaru, though, as an option, just because we're acknowledging options here, right? All right. Nobody fights Kizaru. I should put down revolutionaries fight Kizaru. I don't like that, though. I want to see the Straw Hats do some stuff. John678 says, unless Saturn and other Gorosei are proven to be Admiral level plus, Kizaru won't lose now. Marines and world government are severely lacking forces for the final war. Can I introduce you to the Seraphim? Literally designed to be the strongest human beings ever created. Currently in their... I don't think people are fully processing this, right? The full potential of the Seraphims. I really, really don't. Because they're just looking at what's happening right now. The Seraphims as literally children. This is their child forms. They're child forms, right? They're nowhere near their full potential. This is the equivalent of fighting Luffy when Luffy was during the chapter 1 flashback. That is what is happening right now, okay? Obviously some exaggeration there. They've got some buffs, right? But you get what I'm saying? In their child forms, they are giving trouble to a Yonko, his first commander, and the 2 possibly strongest members of CP0, right? Obviously, not everyone is going all out. Luffy and Zoro are not going all out as far as we know. They're not using Advanced Conqueror's Haki as far as we know. But they're also not just taking out the Seraphim easily. You even have Luffy outright saying, what are you guys, Kaido, right? The fact that he's referencing a fucking Yonko to compare the Seraphim's durability is insane. All right? This is the baby versions of the Seraphim. As somebody talked about earlier in this stream, I always assumed that they would just age up to probably accelerated aging process, full potential by the final war. But somebody talked about earlier this stream, Saturn could force Bonnie to age them up, right? That is a very real possibility. If you're looking at an adult Seraphim Mihawk, why would that not be one of the strongest characters in the world, right? Haki is the one question mark that they still have, and we have yet to see that. Maybe it's been stated that they're still developing, right? So they're still have not fully mastered the full capabilities that they have, right? But it's also been stated that they have all of the experiences of their originals coded into their DNA. So all of this was stated by Edison early on. They're still evolving. They are tapping in slowly into the experiences recorded into their DNA of their originals. So they have the full potential of their originals in theory, if Haki's a thing. But the fact is, in their baby forms, it's been multiple chapters now. They can't put these guys down easily. At full potential, I don't think you're going to need Admirals. I mean, you will still need Admirals, but, Admirals are nice. But full potential Seraphims, the way that Vegapunk's hyped them up, I think that they are going to be the real deal. Keyframe Catalyst is big Smoker fan here. Smoker used to be so fucking cool, guys. He used to smoke 2 cigars. I don't care. Okay, here's a message, all right? Here's a message to everybody, all right? Smoking isn't cool for you in real life, right? In real life, right? It gives you cancer and people around you cancer, right? Smoking's not cool. But, well, cigars, okay. Look, all I'll say is that characters walking around smoking cigars, smoking cigarettes, stuff like that, it still looks cool, no matter what. Smoker used to smoke 2. That's insane. That's so cool. Smoker used to be such a badass pre-time skip. It was insane. But he just became a punching bag post-time skip. Okay, it's crazy to me how we haven't seen him at all this arc. I would love to see post Egghead Island. I would love to see them make a quick escape or detour over to G14. What's the base right next door? It's a G. I don't know. There's a base right next door. Because here's the thing, Vegapunk is close to Smoker and Tashigi in some way. I think they escorted the giant kids to him and stuff like that. So there's a tie-in there, right? And we know Tashigi is there at the very least. So I think Smoker's being saved. So I think we're going to get some... I don't think there's any reason to have these 2 islands so close to each other if there's not some overlap, right? Because Oda said that this base is very close to the Egghead Island. Oda even do Tashigi? Exactly. I do think he'll show up. Really hope he comes back. # Smoker for Nakama. I'm still keeping the dream alive. But we'll see. Suspicic1 says, who are the all-time best GOATs we got? Jordan, then Kobe, then LeBron. Whoa. We got Jordan, then Kobe, then LeBron. What the? Okay. I see what you're saying. Timeline-wise. Jordan, then came Kobe, then came LeBron. Who's the guy of this era? I say it's Luka, and who's the guy before Jordan? Here's my thing. I think that, look, here's my take on basketball stuff, which is just this, and I'll keep it really short because I know people start crying as soon as I go. I shouldn't say crying. It's a fair complaint. Nobody wants to hear basketball on a One Piece stream. The longer I'm even giving this prelude to it, the more you guys are getting irritated. So we'll keep it really fucking short, right? In my opinion, people like Jordan and LeBron, that's when you get someone that's clearly just, you've got, the way the world works is that we're all just clusters of DNA, right? You get millions of different combinations happening all over the world all the time, right? And then eventually, once in a while, one specific weird combination of genetic factors, right? And then just the right hint of, upbringing plus situation leads to a combination that, is significantly, noticeably superior to all the other combinations that are floating around in the world at that moment in time, right? It's experimenting over and over and over. That's what, we are. We're just combinations of DNA, right? You get like a million different experiments from those. Once in a while, you're going to get a certain batch, like a certain one, a certain combination, a certain product that just is, way more effective at doing a certain thing than all these other combinations, right? I think that type of thing where you're just well ahead of everybody else, it's very, very, very rare. I don't put Kobe in that category where, like, I think that Kobe is really, really, really great. And I have to admit, I didn't see him. So you guys got to take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. I saw his later years, but not his prime, right? I think Kobe is great. But there are multiple other people in Kobe's era that, like, he's not some genetic freak, right? Kobe is really, really, he was athletic. He was extremely skilled, extremely mentally determined, etc. like that. But, like, you looked at Jordan for his time, like, against the fucking 90s players. Jordan was, like, physically an athletic god to them, right? He was a dude that could fly. Everyone was just in awe of all the stuff that he could do. You look at highlights of other 90s players and you look at highlights of Jordan. Jordan is, like, just a freak of freaks, right? The things that he could do, the athleticism, plus the fundamentals, plus all of the mental killer instinct, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. That's very, very rare that you just get a combination like that. LeBron, same thing. And that LeBron is just physically and just brain-wise, like, he was born with every single basketball gift, except maybe shooting, but just, like, stronger than anyone on the court, faster than anyone on the court, can jump higher than anyone on the court, and is, like, just as coordinated in the air as anyone in the court, and is fucking smarter than everyone on the court. It's insane, right? Like, these type of genetic combinations, they happen so incredibly rarely. I don't think there's anybody that we have in basketball like that is a freak that is well above everybody else, right? I think we're going to get great players like Luka, like, Giannis, stuff like that, like, really, really great. But, you got to understand that for their times, Jordan, LeBron, they were ahead of their peers in so many, many, many different categories. Like, that's just very, very rare. That's all I'm saying. If I got to say before Jordan, it's probably fucking Wilt Chamberlain or some shit. I think it'll be a while before you get something like another Jordan or LeBron. I think it's another 10, 20 years because that's just the way it goes. These things don't happen that frequently, right? You can be like a really great player, like a Luka, right? Like a Giannis. But there's a difference between that and just saying that, like, you look at this player and they're better at nearly, like, everything than everybody else that they're playing with, pretty much, because they're just born with some weird-ass gifts, Remix King says, Morge, no one can see the cast since it is currently white, BTW. What? No one can see the cast? What does that mean? You guys can't see what I'm screen sharing? Oh, the chat. My bad. BTW didn't give your Pokemon Adventures update. Yes, I did. They got to the next color. It was yellow, and they're fighting Giovanni. And Giovanni is a canon bad guy. Not that everything else isn't canon, but you know what I mean. He's actually canon. He's like a real character and shit. Let me make the chat black for now. Thanks for filling me in on the chat, though. All right. Okay, Papa Dogsucker says, do you think it's possible Sanji and the Germa Bros are an inferior version of the Seraphim? What? Well, yeah, I guess they would be. It feels bad seeing Sanji just be called inferior to the Seraphim. I mean, they are in a sense, right? Because we know that Vegapunk's creations are better, but, it's still Sanji. At the end of the day, he's going to be stronger than most of the Seraphim. In the same sense, Caesar's smiles were inferior to Vegapunk's recreation of Kaido's fruit. Yeah, I mean, like, they're going to be better experiments than whatever Sanji was, but you got to factor in, like, Sanji's, like, what he's actually worked on over time, right? He's, like, a fighter he's had much more time to grow. He's, like, an individual, It's kind of just, like, just because, you could say that Sanji's, he's not as good of a, like, his genetic enhancements and stuff aren't as good as the Seraphims, right? But by that logic, it's like, well, take a character like Zoro. He has no genetic enhancements at all. Like, most everybody has worse genetic enhancements than the Seraphim, right? So that doesn't automatically mean that this character is worse than all of the Seraphim. You know, you got to factor in their own growth, their own expertise, their own training, all of that stuff. KidSmitty94 says, could Bonnie undo petrification? I don't see why. Why? Pirate King Eric says, not another Morge Braun sexual moment. Okay, look, even if you don't agree with how great LeBron is or whatever, even if you have, like, whatever, other people ahead of him all the time, that's fine. But you can at least agree that in terms of pure basketball talent, right, what LeBron has on paper, he is, at his prime, he was stronger, faster, could jump higher, was smarter than pretty much all the other players, right? That's true, right? There's never been a combination of freak, all around, build a basketball player in a lab type stuff like LeBron. If you think that, hey, well, you know, Kobe was better because at the end of the day, Kobe worked harder, got down more fundamental skills, stuff like that, better shooter, more moves, stuff like that, better mid-range game, whatever. That's fine. That's totally fine. But I'm saying, like, when I'm talking about Jordan and LeBron, those are kind of the only two players that you look at throughout NBA history in the last 30, 40 years where it's like genetically the package that they had is clearly light years ahead of what everybody else had, right? In terms of just building a basketball player in a lab, right? First you had Jordan, who was just physically so much more freakish than other basketball players. And then next you had LeBron, who was just physically, for his era, so much more freakish in every category, right? Like, LeBron was so fast. Sorry, Jordan was really fast, really agile, could fly, right? Compared to the fucking 90s guys who were not that athletic, right? LeBron, same thing. For his era, just so much stronger, faster, blah, 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 than everybody else, right? We don't really have that nowadays with any particular player, you know? I think it'll be a bit, at the very least, let's say, pure talent-wise, yeah, right? Pure talent. If you have LeBron, like, lower than Kobe or something, that's fine. I don't debate that. But I'm just saying, on paper, right? Pure what was God-given genetic basketball talent abilities or whatever, you would definitely agree that LeBron's got way more than Kobe, right? If anything, it makes it more impressive that Kobe was able to do so much without being as much of a physical freak as, like, a LeBron James, you know? Anyway, moving along. Day6192000 says, I love movies. I tried to watch 8.5, but I feel like to enjoy a movie like these, you have to truly enjoy the art of filmmaking. Thoughts? I think that 8.5 is an amazing movie if you really want to make your own movies. 8.5 is probably, again, I've said this many times, I think 8.5 is the best directed movie ever. But it is also a movie made, the core conflict of the main character is about what is the next work of art that he wants to create. He wants to create something, but he doesn't know what that something is. He wants to create something that'll wow the world, but he doesn't know what that something is, right? But the core character conflict doesn't even matter as much as kind of showing us, you know, what can be done with film and just the experience of film through a variety of different, just almost the whole movie is almost like a montage sequence, I would say, basically, of just different scenes, different snippets from this guy's past, his current life, things like that. So I would agree that it's something that you can't enjoy as much unless you really enjoy the art of filmmaking. But I would say try something like La Dolce Vita, because it's by the same director. I would say La Dolce Vita is also one of the best directed movies of all time. And 8.5 was actually made, as far as I know, as a almost follow-up to La Dolce Vita, because once he made La Dolce Vita, it was proclaimed widely as this, you know, amazing, fantastically created film, yada, yada, yada. And he was living in the shadow of his own genius, and he's like, what's the next thing I make? So the next movie he ended up making, I might be wrong on the timeline on this, but I think 8.5 might have been after La Dolce Vita. But yeah, it was almost in the wake of making such a brilliant movie. He then made a movie about, you know, what do I make for my next movie? Which is interesting. And in doing that, I think he made an even better movie. He made one movie in between, it looks like. But I don't think he was the prime. No, it was a segment. So La Dolce Vita was directly followed by 8.5 as his next major movie. Anyway. Keenan says, I'm more so meant that it seems that the Boa Seraphim has a bit of her personality. I think the others do too, but all those characters, Mihawk, Junbei, Kuma, are stoic, so we just don't notice it. Um, that's true. That's true, but they're also not speaking at all, right? Even though they're stoic, they do usually speak sometimes. I think that the Boa Seraphim just has to express herself a bit more to get across the cutesy idea that Oda's pushing with her as the reason for being able to turn people to stone. Guys, let's get the stream likes to 300. Let's get it to 300. We're pretty much right there. Sorry, just catching up. Okay. Chunky YT says, I think Kizaru might scare Luffy in a fight. Scare Luffy in a fight? He was down to go to Wano with 2 Yonko there, and Akainu praised him specifically multiple times. It seems delivered from Oda. He might be his right hand. Okay. I'm just going to do a poll real quick. Luffy versus Kizaru. I'm just going to see real quick. Luffy would win. Luffy is stronger. Kizaru is stronger. I would assume that Luffy is stronger. And not just stronger, I feel like almost comfortably stronger. As in, not like he would low diff him or mid diff him, but, I don't think it would be a fight like Luffy versus Lucci, where it goes to the very limit, or Luffy versus Doflamingo, where it's like it takes everything Luffy has. I think it would be a high difficulty fight. I don't think it's one that would mean that Luffy has to rest for 3 days or something after that, is basically what I'm saying. Yeah, 83% think Luffy is stronger. I think it'd be kind of crazy if Kizaru can beat Luffy still at this point. It would almost feel to me that I think many of us would find it almost disappointing because we like the feeling of progress, right, with the main character. I think, it's weird that people try and say stay away from power scaling stuff, but that's just so bizarre because it's a fucking shonen story, right? You're not reading, like some great Russian novel. You're reading a fucking shonen action adventure story about the main character who's on a quest to become the strongest character, the strongest pirate on the seas, right? To say you don't care about power scaling means you are fundamentally missing like 80% of the story, essentially, or disregarding what 80% of the story focuses on, right? The story itself is arguably a story of fucking power scaling. Luffy going from East Blue, one of the weakest pirates, to the strongest pirate, right? That is the story you are reading, right? So when I say that, okay, if Luffy loses to Kizaru here, it would feel a little disappointing. It would just basically be because it's the sense of progress that we're kind of getting, seeing Luffy go from, start of the New World, Doflamingo, then working his way up Katakuri, then Wano, he's taking on Kaido. And yeah, there's a lot of caveats, right? So we have to understand their caveats, right? But, who's injured, who's at full strength, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, we want to feel a sense of progress, right? So we have the character finally be called a Yonko. We see what Shanks does to an admiral, right? Shanks just scares away Green Bull just by flexing a little bit. And we're at a point in the story, where Luffy can kind of be getting compared closer to Shanks than anything else, So it would feel a little disappointing, I think, if the growth of the character and the progress that we think that he's making, right? He's gone through a 150 chapter arc where he's learned advanced armament haki, advanced conquerors haki. He's unlocked his Devil Fruit Awakening and gained access to the most legendary Devil Fruit in history and everything like that, right? He's made all of this progress. He straight up beat the world's strongest creature in a final clash, right? Granted, injuries, yada, 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 right? It would feel somewhat disappointing, I think, if all of that and Luffy still can't beat the guy that bullied them all the way back at Sabaody. To me, that's part of the greatness of getting to witness growth of a character, right? We end Act 1 of One Piece with Luffy losing to Kizaru, right? Essentially, he's no match for Kizaru at the very least. I think it would feel really good if we've come all this way and Luffy can now take on Kizaru, right? We've seen what's the point of all this growth in the New World if he can't even do that. So that's why I think it's important. I would definitely be disappointed if Kizaru is still stronger than Luffy, or, Luffy things haven't changed since Sabaody, essentially. Michael.Joseph, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 5 months. I went to the game LeBron broke the scoring record. You did? Holy shit. And it was one of the greatest moments of my life. Loki turned me into a Ledick writer. You know what's funny? I think, I into a Ledick writer. I think that, I never put much stock into the LeBron scoring title because look, I'm a LeBron fan, but I don't think that the scoring title is that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. I think I talked about this in the stream. Um, I never cared about the scoring title when Kareem had it. I always thought that people would overrate the fuck out of Kareem by trying to argue. Like, people would argue that, Kareem has an argument for being the greatest of all time. It's like, dude, Kareem does not have an argument over Michael Jordan. He does not have an argument over LeBron James. Like, look at, just because he played so long that he got all of these points. Yeah, he had a really great, really consistent career, but that doesn't make him, like, nobody fucking thinks of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when they think the greatest player of all time. You're just being a technical asshat if you're trying to pull out Kareem, you know? So to me, it was just like the scoring. I personally never ever looked at, who has the most points as being that important to anything basketball related. Because again, if I'm comparing like Stephen Curry to Kevin Durant, who's a better player, I'm not going to go look up, well, Steph Curry has 15,000 points and Kevin Durant scored 18,000 points. I guess Kevin Durant's better. It's like, that's so far down the list of things I look at. I don't think Karl Malone's the second best scorer when Karl Malone was right after Kareem in points for so long, right? I was just like fucking Karl Malone has the second most, or he had the second most points for a long time in NBA history. Are we really valuing most points scored that much? Why does it matter? It just means that it is a big deal, but I just put it so much lower than things like actually winning championships, getting first team all the NBA consistently, getting all-star appearances consistently, finals MVPs, things like that. I think just the things that you do, I think how many scoring titles you win, right? So how often did you score the most out of anyone in the league? That matters more than staying in there long enough and doing it consistent. Like, I just don't know. I don't know why we put such a significance to having the most points scored when, in general, I almost never hear in basketball discussions ever people being like, who's better, Kobe or Jordan? Well, let's look up who scored more points lifetime. It's like, who the fuck brings that up? It's a really arbitrary thing. I don't think NBA players go into the league thinking like, you know what, one of my goals is to really climb the all-time scoring list and get to the top of it. I think people are thinking, hey, we want to get MVPs, we want to get rings, we want to, do things like that, right? So to me, it's just, even me as a big LeBron fan, I think that it's a really cool record for him to have, but it doesn't mean that much to me, and I'm personally almost never going to bring it up unless it's getting like really stretched, really trying to paint out a resume or something like that. To me, I just don't think it's a big deal for all-time great discussions. I really don't. Yeah. So that's me. That being said, watching the game, I did think it was cool when LeBron hit it. The reason being, he hit it with a mid-range jumper, and all the pressure was kind of on him to make that shot because the third quarter was coming to a close. Everybody was like cheering every shot. He was trying to get an easy shot, it felt like. They weren't giving it to him, and then he just had to turn around and hit a mid-range, which is traditionally not his most, he's not the clutchest mid-range shooter ever. That's not what he's known for. So it really felt like it meant a lot that he hit it on his first try. You know what I mean? I think it meant a lot that he hit it on his first try because I felt like the amount of pressure and cheering and everything and the weight of expectations on that shot, I felt like it was the equivalent of, a game winner, practically, right? Obviously, if he missed it, he could have tried again and again, but the third quarter was about to close. It would have just felt so much more anticlimactic if he had to go wait for the fourth quarter, sub in real quick, score it, and then leave. It would have felt more anticlimactic if he bricked the shot a few times. It just felt like everyone wanted him to really make it there, and he hit it, and I thought that was really cool. So I'll say that. Anyway, enough about that. Henchme976 says, whatever happened to Zor's 300 Worlds attacks? It was a secret move he used on Mihawk once and never again. At least use it against Mihawk again. I think that's what's going to happen. And he did use it against Pika, the evolved version. I think that it's being saved. He used it a few times, right? He used against Pika. He used it against Ors in their final team move against Ors. And I think he's going to use it like full circle to take out Mihawk at the end. The Outback Pandas, thank you very much. I'm watching this on mute because I'm busy, but it's hard for me to see Luffy fighting Kizaru when it's already been established that him and Zoro are lacking stamina. I think Oda can have them kind of bounce back on stamina pretty easily because Luffy was lacking on stamina, then he's fighting the Seraphim shortly afterwards. He's not really talking about being tired. He can just have Luffy eat meat or something like that. That's just where I'm at. Aether, welcome to the Yonko. Nice name. Drek the Drek says, I'm surprised to hear an intelligent person say 80% of the quality of a story is power scaling. It's the things around the fight that make them important. A slugfest alone is cheap, mindless thrill. I probably wasn't being clear when I said that. I'm not saying 80% of the quality of the story is power scaling. I'm saying that ultimately what you are reading is a power scaling story, right? The quality obviously goes into how the story, how the characters, how the drama, etc. is written around that, right? But to act as though you are above the story somehow or above power scaling somehow because you care about other elements and you don't even think about power scaling, it's like, no, the primary story that we are watching, the primary story that we are reading, and what every arc's conclusion leads to is a fight, an increase in strength, and the goal of ultimately being the strongest on the seas, such that he's achieved the title of Pirate King, right? Being the king of the seas. That is the story of One Piece. It is a power scaling story through and through. It is not different from other shonen in that regard, right? In fact, it may be more focused on power scaling, I think, than many other series because it is literally written from the start to the finish as being a story of progression in strength, in capability, etc., till he has gone from being one of the lowest pirates to the strongest pirate on the ocean, right? That is what most arcs conclude with, him defeating Katakuri and taking a huge step forward, right? Him defeating Kaido and taking a huge step forward, him taking down Doflamingo, taking a huge step forward, him defeating Lucci, taking a huge step forward. These are all, every major arc is a step forward in his progression of strength, and therefore one step closer to Pirate King, right? He's gaining other things along the way, but we are reading a power scaling story, right? To say you don't care about power scaling is just bizarre, because then you don't care about the fucking journey that we are on, right? That's the journey that we are on. It's a story of Luffy going from this all the way to this. And I don't even know how to... It doesn't make it more of a shallow story. I think that's one of the things that people feel like... I think people are worried about, like... thinking that lessens the story in some way or makes the story cheaper or less... You don't have to pretend One Piece is something it's not to justify your preference or whatever, right? It's like, what is One Piece? This is what One Piece is. Because you get to the halfway point of the story, and it's fucking spelled out for us, right? What is the lesson that Luffy's learned at the end of this? He's lost Ace, he's lost everything. I'm no Pirate King, I'm still so weak. There's no debate. This is a story, he needs to be the strongest at the end of the story. His journey and its pitfalls are all related to him having strength, gaining strength to be able to achieve what he wants, or falling short because he's not yet capable, right? It's just, that's just what One Piece is, and there's nothing wrong with that, because it's such a very empowering, well-written narrative around this man's journey, right? To get there. It doesn't lose anything by being primarily focused on how he gets the strength to get there. You know what I'm saying? I think that there's a lot of pretentiousness attached to the idea that One Piece is somehow above, above the importance of characters getting stronger, when it's like, no, that's fucking what it is, and that's just what it is. Like, come on now. Chunky YT says, I think Kizaru can still beat down Zoro, and that could cause major problems if he was underhanded and didn't take a 1v1. With Luffy, he can't win. Let me ask this. Kizaru versus Zoro. Kizaru wins. Zoro wins. Okay, so most people still have Kizaru winning with about the same percentage that they had Luffy winning, almost. Interesting. Dom, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 5 months. Do you follow any other sports? I used to be big into tennis, but I realized I can only really, compare about one thing at a time. My interest in tennis really went down after the Big Four era kind of ended. Day619 says, last movie question, thoughts on Parasite? I think Parasite's a great movie. I don't really have much more thoughts on it than that. I really enjoyed Parasite. It's not something that I think I feel like going back to rewatch a ton, but that's not because it wasn't really good. It's just because I also thought the ending was a little. No. It was overall really, really good. Yeah, I think that a lot of it, the initial suspense and everything, it's such a great movie in one because it's thematically so interesting, well acted, the scenes are written in a very raw, real way in terms of dialogue, how characters interact. But at the same time, it has all of the suspense and tension and edge of your seat thrills, I think, of a horror movie, which I think is a really, really great combination. Blackleg, thanks for being a member for 5 months. Your personal all-time starting five. That shit's too hard because it's just like, the reason I don't like doing personal all-time starting five is because there's a difference between. There's two ways you can do it. You can just pick your 5 best players that you and you're like, well, the talent is so high that I think that they could just win. So I could be like, well, I'm taking LeBron at the point guard. Or I could do my 5 top players in terms of who I think is the best at every position. Basically. Like, honest, like, an honest version of that position. So that makes sense. So, for example, if I was doing an honest top 5, I would probably have to put Tim Duncan at the 4. But I think that if I were doing a cheating top 5, then I'd probably put, LeBron in at the 4 or something like that and throw Kevin. I don't know. I could cheat a little bit and take players who aren't organically at that position and put them in. Right? If I'm doing an honest top 5, let's just say that, I would say Steph Curry at the point. Steph Curry at the point, I understand why people want Magic and stuff like that, but I'm putting LeBron at the 3, so I think that the need for Magic really goes down, and on top of that, Steph Curry gives you the best shooting. I put, Steph Curry at the 1, Jordan at the 2, LeBron at the 3. I know I'm supposed to put Tim Duncan, but I didn't watch him, and I didn't really watch highlights of him, so I don't know. I put Giannis at the 4, and then I put Shaq at the 5. But here's the thing. I don't think this is a good team. I don't think they have enough shooting. So my urge is basically I want to swap in KD or something for somebody. Maybe have LeBron at the 4, KD at the 3, something like that. But then it gets too messy and complicated. You know what I'm saying? Mahavid Sadeki says, Kareem is knit GOAT since by that time Morge was barely a Viagra pill. He mopped the floor with every concurrent player, had a patent shot, extremely smart, and did not lose to a 20s Rose. Kareem got most of his Kareem's a fucking... You realize Kareem won like 4 of his championships with Magic Johnson in his prime? Like, Kareem was great and all, but he and Magic both benefit from basically playing with another... Nobody else gets this. I mean, Shaq played with Kobe. So it's not the same thing, but Shaq was the guy for those championships. Kareem was basically... I think the first one that Kareem won with Magic... Kareem should have won Finals MVP, but he was taken out. Like, he couldn't play the last game, so Magic won because Magic carried or whatever. But in general, Kareem won most of his championships thanks to Magic. And Magic probably won more than he would have otherwise because he had Kareem. So I think both of their legacies are a little bit inflated. Yeah. LeBron didn't lose to Derrick Rose. What are you even talking about? Tennis GOAT, as much as I hate to say it, is Novak Djokovic. I was a Federer fan for the longest time, but it's so absurd to argue against Djokovic at this point. Alex Tomlin says Djokovic not being allowed in the U.S. is so lame. Yeah, this is a hot take, but I'm not a anti-vaxxer by any means or anything like that, but I'm just at a point where I'm just like, just let him play. I just want to see him play, dude. I don't personally care. I don't know how many people care at this point that Djokovic doesn't have a vaccination, right? I think most people are kind of just like, fuck it, let him play. Like, I don't know who's really gonna cry that much if one dude with a vaccination who's probably going to be kept super isolated, like without a vaccination, who's probably going to be kept super isolated and stuff, is allowed to play some tennis that so many people want to see. I get it. It increases the chances marginally probably of some person maybe getting COVID, and that sucks. But I'm going to be just very real with my personal opinion here, which is like, I would be lying if I said I wouldn't rather just have Djokovic show up and, because it feels... There's one thing where players are unable to compete because of injuries, Djokovic, it's mind-boggling to think how many potential slams he's throwing away because he's choosing not to compete out of his own stances. And you could say that, well, it's best not to give in and capitulate to a player's whims like that. But at the same time, at the end of the day, I just want to see. I want to see the most competitive level of. What if a player comes along in 10 years and is competing with Djokovic's slam count, and it's like, then you're going back and thinking, well, how many did Djokovic throw away because he could have probably won them, but he chose not to compete? I just want to see what everyone can do if they're choosing to compete when they can compete, basically, right? Injuries is different because injuries is a product of, lots of times your own style of play, what your body. Injuries are a representation of what your body is capable of to a degree, I would say, Obviously, some injuries are completely unforeseen, unavoidable, etc. But injuries are not the same as literally being in perfect physical shape and choosing not to play. So when people are like, oh, well, Nadal missed lots of slams because he's injured, I'm like, that's not the same as Djokovic just being like, well, I would pretty much 80% chance win the slam, but I don't feel like playing. Or I refuse to play, basically, right? Nadal's injuries reflect him and his style of play, which is very physically demanding as a player. So, he's going to miss some slams here and there. That's just the way it is. This is Djokovic purely just being personally just a weird dude, I guess, in his beliefs. Sun says, if Kizaru doesn't fight Zor right now, he's stronger. If Zor versus Kizaru matchup happens now, Zor will be portrayed as strong, or will be portrayed as strong as Kizaru. I think that's probably true. Sheriff Laffy, thanks for being a Yonko team member for 5 months. Hello, Morge. Hope you're well. Kaido and Big Mom's plan sounds so crazy when you see the Seraphim and then realize they'll only get stronger. Kaido and Big Mom together, the thing is that, I don't know. Big Mom never got to play with her full, I'm thinking in basketball terms. She never got to fight with her full crew, Jackson says saying legacies are inflated because you had a good teammate is dumb. At almost every championship in NBA history is won with 2 stars. Yes, but the question is, who was really the driving force? Like, I don't like using the bus driver, bus rider analogy, but you have to set limits at some point, right? There's a reason where, like, Robert Horry is not, like, at the end of the day, would he have been winning those championships if he didn't have Magic, right? Probably not. Right, especially when you're second fiddle. I think that's a big deal. When you're second fiddle and it's clear that it's Magic's team past a certain point, yes, Kareem's career is being inflated, past a certain point. Anyway. Claying Papa says, can you please stop talking about hoops? All right. All right, I'll try. I promise I'll try. I'm just going to say a lot of people in fucking chat are talking about basketball. So I'm actually having to, like, look through it. Instead of asking me stop talking about basketball, give me a One Piece related question. Because at the moment, all I'm seeing is basketball talk. And some people saying stop talking basketball. I'm like, okay, well you got to give me something. Virgil Hawkins says, if they were competent, then Big Mom and Kaido should be able to do it, in my opinion. I don't think that, with what we know now, I think that Big Mom and Kaido together could could really be a problem for the Marines. I think it would be close. I think I would still give it to the Marines. But with the Seraphim are hard to scale at the moment because they're mainly just really strong tanks as far as we can see right now. We need to see, I think at full potential, we'd be able to see their fighting ability. Right now, they're giving characters trouble because it's hard to hurt them, but it's not hard to beat them in an interaction, if that makes sense, right? So how do you scale a character like that, really? Like, you can hit them around a lot, but you can't deal damage. I don't know. Victor asked, how did Rob Lucci override Sentamaru? Didn't he just take out Sentamaru? Oh, wait. Why is Saturn here and what happens? I forgot about this. The big one we got is that Saturn will force Bonnie to age up the Seraphim. And I think that's the most interesting thing. AJK says, by the way, Morge, how could the satellites override the commands of each other, and how can S-Mingo be behind the betrayals? Don't they need to be in hierarchy of command? I think that's the biggest thing with Flamingo, which is that he would need some way to have used... that was the main part of the theory, which is that he was able to use his puppet stuff on one satellite that was unsuspecting at a opportune moment, and basically use them in a certain way that basically allowed him to get some level of permanent control. But the details are too hazy right now. The other idea was basically that it's possible that the Seraphim have just individually been able to act outside of their commands and are choosing when or when not to obey commands, because of the earlier theme of, Vegapunk's creations not being able to really train free will out of his creations and stuff like that. So that's a separate idea. And then Seraphim Doflamingo is just one that's working in secret. Sheriff Laffy says, but her aging powers wear off after some time. Maybe awakening or something like that. Who knows? Samuel Victor says, Kaido has the most incompetent crew while Big Mom have the most competent crew. Meanwhile, Kaido is absolutely more terrifying than Big Mom. We talk about competent crew versus incompetent crew. I think what I liked about the tricky thing is that with Whole Cake, the crew did seem really, really competent in comparison, because the Whole Cake crew, they fucked up the Straw Hats a good deal, right? A big deal was made out of the fact that Luffy was struggling against Cracker and that he needed Nami's assistance to defeat Cracker, right? Then the Enraged Army, yes, Luffy was weakened, but the Enraged Army was really, really hyped up, and that was just Big Mom's lower level subordinates, and they did deliver on capturing Luffy and Nami. Then Katakuri, nothing needs to be said. And just in general, the overwhelming the Strats just felt so outmatched over the course of Whole Cake Island that was one of the big complaints in Whole Cake Island, which is that many were saying that it feels like the Strats shouldn't be able to escape and get away from situations over and over. That's what people had trouble accepting, that Luffy was going to beat Katakuri. People didn't like that the Strats were able to get away from the Big Mom pirates while they're being chased and hunted down and everything like that, right? We felt that a lot of it was too many conveniences, things like that. I remember that was a lot of complaints for the latter half of Whole Cake Island, that it felt like they were up against something that was much stronger than them, a force that was much stronger than them, and they kept getting lucky or plot armored through a lot of it, right? Against the Beast Pirates, I think Oda never really made us feel as though the Straw Hats were truly outmatched against the Beast Pirates, because the first time we were up against the Beast Pirates was when it was time to basically beat them. They didn't do much for the first half of the arc, and the only times they did really, you have Hold'em getting fucked up, you have the Udon guys getting fucked up, you have Page 1 getting fucked up. That's really all the Beast Pirates did. In Act 1, they had pretty much no presence. Anytime they showed up, it was weaker members to lose, and then when it was time to actually fight them, it was, again, to lose. So that's a big difference, I would say. Dayday6192000 says, besides Marine/Water 7 and Islabi, any OP arcs better than Chimera Ant arc in your opinion? I don't personally think so. I think at the end of the day, One Piece and Hunter x Hunter have very different strengths. I think that there's no other arc where One Piece's strengths are so high that I would say that they are higher than the Chimera Ant arc strengths. But I do think that in terms of... I think One Piece is really, really, really good at certain things, right? Like generating emotion, telling a really powerful tale of, just straight up good defeating evil. I think there's One Piece arcs that are really good at that sort of thing in a very pure, clean storytelling manner, and that would be something like Arlong Park or Alabasta, but I'm not going to say that those arcs are better than the Chimera Ant arc. And I think even when it comes to stuff like Water 7 and Islabi or Marine Ford, that's just a complicated discussion and comes down to a lot of what you value, because those two arcs are very different than what makes the Chimera Ant arc good. I definitely think that Kaido seemed like a really big threat. I'm not saying that Kaido showed up in Act 1 and obviously that immediately established him as a huge threat. Oh, let me ask this. When are we getting to Garp, and when do you guys think we're getting more Shanks? Do you feel like this is all being saved for post-arc at this point, or do you think we're going to get more of this during Egghead Island? Kurakami Najimi says Hunter x Hunter is a top 5 series for me, but Chimera Ant arc is overrated. I mean, I think Chimera Ant arc is the best arc that Hunter x Hunter has, so that's an interesting take. Unless you're saying that you would agree that it's the best arc, but it doesn't put it higher for you, I guess. Post arc? Wrench Dodger 2000 says Kaido was a huge struggle throughout Wano, but the Beast Pirates themselves were lacking. Yeah, I would agree with that. Kaido is definitely focused on significantly more as the main threat. Garp definitely post, but you think Shanks stuff some during the arc. Okay. I think that sounds right to me, because I think Garp would be too much of a distraction, right? Garp facing Blackbeard. I feel like that's something that we really want to see play out. Kid versus Shanks, I think that we can see little glimpses of it, because it's not. Ultimately, I don't think Kid versus Shanks is as important to the plot. Garp and Blackbeard feels extremely, extremely important to the plot, because with Kid versus Shanks, one of the things is that we know that. Here's why, right? I think with Kid versus Shanks, at the end of the day, we know that there can't be any severe plot consequences that come out of it, because Oda's not going to kill Kid, right? He's not going to have Shanks kill. They're both good guy characters at the end of the day. Kid is technically one of those anti-hero, bad guy type characters, or heroes with an edge type characters, right? But ultimately, we know that Kid's being portrayed we're supposed to think of him in the protagonist route, right? For the most part. But that's the thing with Shanks and Kid, because they're both technically, they're friends of Luffy in different ways. We know that nothing too crazy can happen. Shanks isn't going to do anything too bad to Kid. It's not like this is going to be the end of the Kid Pirates. It's certainly not going to be the end of the Red-Haired Pirates. Even if Shanks gets Kid's road poneglyph, that's not a big deal at the end of the day, right? With Garp and Blackbeard, the stakes are much higher, because Blackbeard is a bad guy. He's a killer. He's killed before. Kobe is at stake. There's Rock's history at stake that we could get revelations on. There's just more bad things that could happen, especially if Blackbeard takes out the biggest hero of the Marines. There's more potential there for sure. Basically, the Shanks situation, there's more potential for it to end up in almost a neutral state where nothing too bad happens to either Kid or Shanks, whereas the Garp and Blackbeard situation, that's such an out of the blue conflict that it feels as though it's only written in if something really significant is to come out of it. That's kind of game changing. Victor says, could Cross Guild invade Impel Down for Dofi? I don't think they'd do that for Doflamingo, right? It's not as though they need Doflamingo. It'd be nice to have, but he's not their friend. They have no reason to think that Doflamingo would definitely work with them. It would be cool if Oda had them do it. I think that'd be cool, but I think that's a lot to go through for Doflamingo, who is already I don't know. It's not as though he's, other than being a former Shichibukai, there's just no connection. There's other strong pirates that they could go after, try to recruit, They could even go shopping around the Big Mom Pirates or something like that. It's kind of like, if they're going after Doflamingo, well then, King and Queen are being taken off to Impel Down now. Why wouldn't they just try and pick up King and Queen? I mean, King is stronger than Doflamingo, right? Most people, I think, would think that Queen Doflamingo, I don't know. I don't want to get into that. But, Why wouldn't they go after King? Abdurrahman Amari, thank you, appreciate it. Although Doflamingo would have strong incentive against the Marines and everything like that because they kind of did all hang him out to dry. He was on their side, he was pulling the strings, everything, you know. Doflamingo does have hidden information on the Celestial Dragons, which could be really useful for cross-skilled if they care for that. It's hard to say. Flame Emperor says, unless they do it to have him as a servant. I mean, Doflamingo would never agree to that. Abdurrahman Amari says, how DNA plays a role in the power of Seraphim Mihawk. The swordsman is more stronger with experience. I don't know what that means. I mean, I get it. The DNA is, it was already stated by Edison that, it sounded, the way he phrased it, it sounded almost accidental that they had been able to do this, but the experiences of the originals of the Seraphim are coded into the DNA of the actual Seraphim clones, right? So, in theory, Seraphim Mihawk, but he also mentioned that they're slowly developing and learning into it, right? So, in theory, Seraphim Mihawk is going to get closer and closer to actual Mihawk's sword cutting skill the further he grows. Dofi has intel, I agreed. Young Smoke VP17 says, unless improved by Mihawk, no Dofi. I mean, let's approve by Mihawk, no Dofi. I don't think Mihawk cares that much, dude. I think Mihawk has the least, almost, I wouldn't be surprised if Mihawk has among the least input in Cross-Skill's decision-making process, because I feel like it kind of goes like this. Crocodile makes the decisions. Buggy then has to spin it to the fleet, right? Hey guys, we're doing this next, and it's a good idea because blah blah blah, and everyone's like, we love you, Buggy-sama. And then Mihawk's kind of just napping, and he will wake up and do whatever needs to be done if it fits what he feels like doing. It's kind of what I feel. Kurakami Najimi says, in comparison, Yorknu has way better pacing, better antagonist, does just as much for Gon's character. He's characterized in every arc he's in so far. Added more to Kurapika and foreshadowed why. I'd say quickly in respect to that, I personally would agree Yorknu has better pacing. I don't know if you read Yorknu in the manga, but Yorknu was not paced like that in the manga, so I wouldn't necessarily agree about better pacing, but in the anime I would agree. Better antagonist, I felt like the Camarant arc was a step up to what the Yorknu arc attempted to do, because the Yorknu arc, in terms of antagonists, because the two biggest things that those two arcs had going for them was creating a cast of antagonists that were suddenly fleshed out a lot more than you would normally expect for antagonists, and turned out to be a lot more morally complex, with more morally complex motivations, ideologies, and desires than you would expect out of antagonists. I think Camarant arc just did that, but in a much, 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 much more mature, profound way with a lot more to say. So I prefer, in that regard, I think that it's almost one-to-one, and I would say that while I like Yorknu's antagonists, I think that Camarant arc was just that, but taken to a far greater degree. Does just as much for Gon's character. He is characterized in every arc he's in so far, I would agree, but I would say that Camarant arc was the conclusion, the climax to everything that had been building up towards Gon's character arc, true purpose or true message, you know? And added more to Kurapika and foreshadowed why. Yeah, but Kurapika is just one character. You could say Camarant did more for Killua, you know, lots of other characters, right? Chilux Arita says, the Camarant arc spacing was trash in the manga. Ain't no way he's saying Yorknu was even close to as bad. So I know that a lot of people really, really disliked Camarant's pacing in the manga when they had to read it week to week because it came out extremely slow. And I know that the anime did it a lot of favors by changing a lot of people's opinions later on because they got to see it all in one go. I got to binge the Camarant arc. You are right. The more I think about it, you are right. There was a section, especially towards the middle of... It's tricky because I feel like Camarant, the way it goes, without spoiling too much of it, without spoiling anything really, I would just say in terms of interest, right? I think it starts off slow, without that much to really grab you or hook you and kind of stuff is happening. Then it has a quick spike in terms of lots of crazy, interesting shit. Very hard spike. and then it drops off for a good period of time, and then it spikes way back up again. So you are right. I would say that the one difference is that the York New arc had a brief section that I would say is just straight up pointless, that I feel like the anime condensed a lot, whereas don't feel like the Chimera Ant arc had that. But I would agree at the end of the day, I think the Chimera Ant arc's pacing was probably not as good as York New. I would agree. Gohana PBR says the art in Chimera Ant was dog shit. Yeah, I agree. Well, you said dog water. I interpreted it as dog shit. Yeah. Icon Xenophon says I hated Gon and Chimera Ant. Yeah, me too. I don't like Gon as a character, period. I never liked him as a character, so for me, Gon's development overall doesn't matter that much. Um, I didn't care for Gon and Chimera Ant, but he wasn't the primary reason I really enjoyed the arc. And especially on rewatch when I saw it on the anime, I could at least appreciate what was done with his character, even if I didn't care for him. Victor says don't read Hunter x Hunter, watch it. Yeah, Hunter x Hunter is one of the manga that I would definitely say the anime is almost strictly better. I think there's parts of Hunter x Hunter where Tagashi really tries and he can do really good things with his paneling, his use of white space and things like that, but I feel like almost across the board, Hunter x Hunter's anime is better than the manga, and I think it improves in many ways. Guitar Hero, I'm not going to talk about that because I think that ventures into spoilers territory too much about Hunter x Hunter. I think Hunter x Hunter is one of those series that, like, let's get the stream likes to 400, everybody. Let's get the stream likes to 400. I think Hunter x Hunter is one of those series that I don't feel too comfortable revealing details about. It's not like Naruto, like is being mentioned below. I think I saw someone say Naruto. Never mind. Naruto is something that I believe that everybody has probably read or watched or just isn't going to read or watch at this point. And I think that Dragon Ball is also along those lines, but I don't care about spoiling Dragon Ball. There's some certain things. Yeah, some people really like Gon. Kurokami Najima likes Gon a lot. So I can understand why people like Gon a lot, and I have nothing to say against that. I get why people like Gon a lot, but I just personally don't. Yeah, Santorio, please stay away from nobody look at Santorio's comment. Please stay away from stuff like that, I guess. PCP is recommending I watch Mob Psycho. I don't know, man. Telekinetic powers are just never that interesting to me. That's the main thing. Because people have told me it's similar to One Punch Man, but just with a telekinetic MC. I just don't care for telekinetic powers. I've actually always disliked that. It's just a weird power set that personally, it's a random thing. There's no real explanation to it. I just never like reading that or watching that. Victor says I generally dislike shonen with really young main characters. That's another big thing for me, which is that I don't like that Hunter. That's one thing for me with Hunter x Hunter, which is just that it's so interesting that Gon and Killua are among the youngest shonen protagonists. Period. Right? They're about the same age as Red, my favorite hero from Pokemon Adventures. And Gon and Killua are they're really, really young, right? But Hunter x Hunter is a much darker series than most shonen tend to go. I think that just because of Gon and Killua's age, and, at the end of the day, they can be, their shenanigans and stuff, it can be entertaining, but a lot of it relies for me on the story that's being built around them, and that's why they're never exactly my favorite characters. I tend to like the surrounding cast and the surrounding side characters, antagonists a lot more in Hunter x Hunter, which tends to carry the series for me personally. So I wouldn't say that's not a weakness in the series in my mind, because that's a personal preference, but it is something that holds me back from really liking Hunter x Hunter quite as much as something like a One Piece, where the Straw Hats are just my favorite characters, right? And that's a lot of why I really love the current Hunter x Hunter arc, honestly, because it doesn't even have Gon and Killua, and they're not really missed for me. Sampath Sukesh Revolparty says, hey, just woke up. Would Bonnie be needed to age up the Seraphim? So that's something that was talked about. Saturn will force Bonnie to age up the Seraphim. If Judge could figure out rapid aging, so could Vegapunk. P.S. Mob is character based. Yeah, but isn't there still, like, I'm just saying the action is still telekinetic stuff, right? Would Bonnie be needed to age them up? Yeah, I mean, the argument is that Vegapunk could probably just do it, or it's maybe even pre-programmed into their DNA to age faster than normal humans, meaning by the final war they could be aged up. Here's the thing. Bonnie's power does lend itself to that very there's two ways about it, right? So with the aging up, okay? So there's option A, which is there's option 1, right? Option 1 is basically we wait for the final war and they get aged up. Option 2, there's option 2A, which is Bonnie ages them up. Option 2B, which is Vegapunk ages them up immediately, right? So imagine option 1 is they don't get aged up this arc. We will see them aged up down the line in the final war. Option 2 is they do get aged up immediately, and it's rapid fire sped up. We get to see them aged up in Egghead itself, and it's either done by Vegapunk or Bonnie, right? I prefer them being aged up soon, rapidly. Reason being, it's more dramatic, right? So, simple way of putting it is basically, let's say the Straw Hats ultimately figure out how to deal with them over the next couple of chapters, as they're likely going to do, right? That takes care of the Seraphim for now. Then down the line, once it's time for the final war, we get to see the Seraphim again, and now they're much older, so it's foreboding, and it's cool to see them back and looking a lot stronger, but I think it doesn't have quite the same impact, just for the sake of drama, if the Straw Hats, they manage to overcome the Seraphim with some difficulty. They're clearly a bit of a challenge already, at the very least a bit of a challenge already, right, in their baby form, so they manage to overcome the Seraphim. They're like, cool, we did it, and then, by the end of the arc, the Seraphim are all aged up, and suddenly it's like, holy shit, fighting them once was at least a pain in the ass, and now they're, God knows, 10 times stronger? Who knows? What 5 times, 2 times, 10 times? Who knows? Yeah, this is going to be a problem, right? Just setting up the sense of, holy shit, we've got a big problem on our hands to deal with down the line. I think it's just more dramatic to get that feel right now, and just know, that way we know over time that we're heading towards a final war with the world government, where, look, we're going to have to deal with the Marines, we're going to have to deal with the Admirals, and those Seraphim, they're already fucking full-grown adults. We had to run away from Egghead Island or whatever at the end of the day. You don't know if they have to run away or whatever, but you know what I'm saying. It's just overall, right? The sense of foreboding, the sense of excitement or hype for the Seraphim, I think it's at its max if they manage to beat them here, but then it concludes with them taking a huge step into phase 2, and it's just like, all right, this is a lot we're not dealing with right now, but this is going to be a serious issue down the line, right? So with that regard, right? The next option is basically, like you said, Vegapunk ages them up right now, or Bonnie ages them up. It's been said that Bonnie's aging is temporary. I wonder if that's something that could be resolved. Maybe she's forced to use Awakening or something like that, which does it permanently. Who knows? If Vegapunk does it, why wouldn't he have already done it? If Vegapunk does it, it's cool, but at the same time, it's just like, Bonnie's right there, and her ability is literally this. It would feel more of a nice, neat, organic fit if Bonnie's just made to do it, in my opinion. But maybe. Day6192000 says, why don't you like Gon or Killua? It would be a lot to go into. Okay, Killua, how do I explain this? Okay, let's talk about Gon first. Gon is I like the direction that things went with Gon's character, right? But let's talk about Gon before Chimera Ant and him in the span of the first few arcs. I just didn't care. It felt Luffy-esque in a way, but Gon does have significant differences from Luffy. It can feel like the same on a surface level. But I felt like Gon isn't as... he's very blank slatey, happy-go-lucky, confident. The biggest trait obviously being that he will be very reckless, dangerously reckless, right? That's a key part of it when he is determined to do something. Lots of surface level similarities to Luffy. But the bigger thing is that I feel that Gon doesn't lend himself, or at least for me, he's almost too shallow and simplistic in the way that he talks and is made to talk very frequently. And I feel like a lot of the moments that come out of him, they're just not as emotionally powerful or something. I feel like the story doesn't build to very endearing moments for Gon the way that it often does for me with Luffy. I also feel like Gon is a lot less funny than Luffy, and that is simply because Oda is significantly better at writing comedy than than Togashi, right? Not to say that Togashi isn't also way better at many other things than Oda, but let's call it a spade a spade. Oda's comedy is significantly better than what you get in Hunter x Hunter, right? So a lot of it just comes down to Gon for me is Luffy if you took away a lot of the aspects of Luffy that ultimately really make me like him. And then Gon is kind of more, I don't know, it's a lot of the surface level similarities to Luffy that I don't enjoy as much, right? On their own. Especially because he's a kid. It's just a lot of the naivety, the simplicity, the straightforward happy-go-luckiness, etc. I think Togashi doesn't write as many, shock factor kind of cool moments like punching a celestial dragon with Gon as you get with Luffy. And I think a lot of that, the element of surprise, unpredictability, comedy, things like that, I think a lot of that goes a long way to fleshing out a character like Gon. Like, I could even compare Gon to, he's in the same vein as a Goku, stuff like that. Now, people are probably going to start writing a whole bunch of comments about, like, Morge, you don't understand Gon, etc. I'm not getting into the deeper aspects of Gon and what is actually being done with this character and the more intelligent things that are done with this character. I can respect that. I'm talking purely about chapter to chapter, reading him on page, why I don't find him that entertaining to read. It does ultimately feel a lot like I'm just reading a little kid's dialogue a lot of the time, right? A little kid's dialogue with a very optimistic, happy sort of view of the world. It's just not that fun for me. Killua I did like for a long time, largely because he stands in contrast to Gon for that, and that's why he makes a really good foil to Gon. But I ultimately, over time, Killua's main character flaw, right, which is that he is ultimately too hesitant, too scared, too safe, right, too passive in many cases. It doesn't make for an engaging character for me over time. And then at the same time, the way that he resolved that and overcame his character conflict, I felt that was the one moment, the only moment in the Chimera arc that I felt was very, 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 very cheap writing, right? The solution to Killua's character conflict. And I think you guys know what I mean. What was discovered to be the true source of Killua's weakness, right? His mental weakness and stuff. I felt like that was very cheap. So at the end of the day, I think a lot of it just comes down to the fact that also that they're just little kids, and like a lot of their dialogue comes across as reading two little kids talk to each other. Just the way it is. Gemini says Gon is very selfish and hypocritical, which is why I like him. Sure. I just don't think it's done in as and this is subtle, like this is stuff that basically is harder to explain when I'm just talking broadly. I would have to pull up basically individual scenes, compare scene to scene, and basically be like, well, this is why when this character is written in this sort of manner, I find it funny or endearing or likable in some way. But whereas with Gon, I tend to find it less lovable, more generic, etc. Right? Again, I'm not saying Gon is generic because I think the direction that ultimately went with his character was the opposite of that. I think it was very, very bold. I think it was very, very well thought out. I think it was a great conclusion to his character arc, right? And he makes for a much more complex message as a character, or what was done with his character makes for a much more complex message than you might initially expect. But I'm talking about just reading him page to page for the vast majority of the early arcs of Hunter x Hunter. He's not that fun for me. Samput Sakesh Revolpati says, with Kuma discussed, he's headed to marijuana. Oh, okay. What do you guys think's happened? Okay, that's actually one of the biggest mysteries. What happens with Kuma? What happens with Kuma? And this is the last topic we're going to call the stream on. Let me put this in red. What happens with Kuma? Because this is the one that I have the biggest question mark about. I think everything else here we can make good guesses about. I have no idea what the fuck happens with Kuma. And I think partly that's because with Kuma, I think a lot of it's going to time up with learning more about his backstory. So we might learn about his backstory and then cut back to the present, learn about his backstory, cut back to the present. So keep cutting back and forth between scenes of the past and future for him, which I think could be great. Virgil Hawkins says, what are your thoughts on Yuji from Jujutsu Kaisen and characters from Jujutsu Kaisen in general? Do you plan on making Jujutsu Kaisen content in the future? Plus Wano video update. Okay, great questions across the board. I'm not caught up on the culling game, so I won't speak on whatever's happening with Yuji on that. Yuji is not a great protagonist for me personally to follow, because, how do I say this? I feel like there's not much about Yuji that I don't see already in lots of other characters. He doesn't feel particularly innovative to me as a main character. And the bigger thing is that the driving, you can get down to the very first chapter. His driving motivation, right, with his dying grandpa or whatever, it feels so generic. It feels extremely generic to me. I feel like a lot of the observations he makes, or the little things he has to learn from, the befriending characters, Mahito, things like that. I just never feel like his growth is that revolutionary. It's stuff that I feel as though lots of series that are not shonen tend to do a lot better, and I feel as though in the context of shonen, his shonen-y aspects, right, are less. I feel like a lot less is done to make me really hyped or emotionally invested in a lot of things that Yuji does compared to a lot of other shonen. So Jujutsu Kaisen, I guess if you want my broad thoughts on it in general, I feel like it's a series that takes a lot of. I think it's a good series. I don't think it rises to the highs a lot of shonen do in terms of straight up shonen storytelling, in terms of really getting me really like invested in a group of friends, for example, or getting me really really hyped over a really emotional hero beats villain scene or something like that, or really hyped over a power up even personally. Well, no, there's really cool aspects of what Jujutsu Kaisen does, but that's different than just raw emotion, I guess, that comes out of a hero unlocking something in the midst of battle against, an overwhelmingly powerful villain, things like that. Yeah, just in terms of emotion, raw, pump you up, get you really excited and feel really empowered and all of that good shonen shit. I feel like it's not quite there. In terms of friendship, nakama, camaraderie, I feel like it's not quite there. So it doesn't do all of that shonen stuff in the same vein as well as a lot of other shonen do. It goes a lot darker, I'd say, with I think of what it portrays, and I think some of the ideas it tries to tackle. But then in that category, there are lots of series like actual seinen manga or something like a Hunter x Hunter even, which I practically count as seinen basically, that do it a lot better. So for me, Jujutsu Kaisen is in this weird place where it's a blend of it's a certain blend that I find enjoyable, but I definitely don't think is that there's no area almost I can say that I think Jujutsu Kaisen is better than any other series I read, pretty much. You get what I'm saying? Which is where I'm at with the series. Its power system was the one thing that had potential, it felt like, but the more I think about it, I don't know if I would even give it that necessarily, but I still think it's an enjoyable series for me overall. I just think that that's kind of my personal appraisal of a lot of its strengths, I guess. I might make Jujutsu Kaisen content in the future, depending on what I think of the Culling Game arc. I do think that the Shibuya Incident arc is a great arc overall. I think it's a very gripping read from start to finish, and it's especially really good binged. Wano video update, there's no new update. All I can keep saying is that it's a video that is 100% something I'm going to get out at some point. My concerns are still, to this day, basically. One, I'm also working on video right now for the Manga Mode channel, so I don't have time to work on the Wano video. The video is in its, there's a full draft of the Wano video, and that's basically where it stayed at for a bit. My biggest trepidation is, again, I've said before, I don't want to put out a video that can kind of turn the channel into something that I don't want it to be, which is basically a channel where lots of people who have negative One Piece thoughts, etc. I already know that I'm a channel where lots of people like to hear more, how do I say this? More critical and not overly purely positive takes on One Piece, right? But it's still not a channel where you shit on One Piece, because for the majority of it, the majority of stuff is talking about really good shit that One Piece does, right? I think people do like the fact that I like to delve into the nuance of when I also think things are not as strong, etc. I don't want to put out a full video, because it will be an hour-long video, just talking about one arc, probably the most significant arc, arguably, of at least the post-time skip, basically, and mostly focusing on areas where I don't think are strong. And that changes, I guess, the perception of the channel quite a bit. Or at least the type of viewers that I attract. That's the bigger thing. And the bigger thing is, I've realized that I would like to drop it at a point where One Piece itself feels like it's in a very exciting state where everyone's really happy about what's going on. Okay? So that's not to say people don't like Egghead, but I think it'd be great if maybe the conclusion of Egghead or something like that, a period where I can also be dropping videos talking about a lot of the things that One Piece is doing really, really well at the moment, that can then be balanced out with a video talking about Wano, where I feel like there were aspects that, I didn't enjoy as much, basically, right? So I'd like to drop it at a point where I can feel like there's a good balance. KidsMini94 says, Oda will give us a tearjerker moment where Kuma climbs to the red line to return to serving the Tenryubido. Return to serving the Tenryubido? Returns to serving the Celestial Dragons. That would be fucking tragic. PCP says, here's $10. Thank you. Please watch the best written story in all of anime. Mob Psycho 100 doesn't really utilize telekinesis in every fight. In fights, every psychic has their own thing. Every psychic? Everyone's a psychic? They're more like My Hero Academia quirks, plus Katakuri is greater than King. Katakuri versus King, I was a mixed bag on that. I think with the latest stuff, it becomes very difficult to... It's so hard. Okay, let me talk about Mob Psycho real quick first. Maybe I'll give it a try, but if everyone's a psychic, I just don't get it. How do they all have their own thing? Aren't they all psychics? I don't get it. The main character uses telekinesis, right? Which is, I think, my main complaint. Not complaint, because it's not a bad thing. My main reason that I'm not personally interested. As for Katakuri greater than King, Katakuri versus King is so hard to argue because it's just hard to see how Katakuri can beat him, period. Right? I think you can make the... Here's what I think. I think you can make the argument that Katakuri is stronger, because you could argue that in a 1v1, if they went against each other, King might win that fight, but Katakuri is stronger overall because if you looked at the grand scheme of the One Piece universe, maybe you think Katakuri stacks up better against more characters than King does. You know what I mean? Like, in any sport or competition, you don't just look at the head-to-head rivalry to determine who's better, right? Just because, player A tends to beat player B in tennis, that's not how you view it. You view it as who's better versus the field, right? Same thing with Smash or something like that, right? So that being said, I think that you could argue that maybe Katakuri's better against more characters, maybe. King is just, it's with the stuff we learned recently, because what we're clearly seeing is that even the one thing that Luffy and Zoro haven't broken out is Advanced Conquerors Haki, right? Advanced Conquerors Haki has not been broken out, but it's like, that's the last thing that we've yet to see from them. They've pulled out every other trick pretty much, right? Zoro hasn't used Ashura, but that is also implied to be a product of Conquerors Haki, right? So, it's kind of just like, if Gear 4th Luffy can't damage them, combined with an attack from Lucci's strongest attack, right? Gear 4th Luffy can't do it. Zoro can't do it, even with help, right? Advanced Conquerors Haki is pretty much their only shot. It's just hard to see, because what Luffy hit him with just now, right? It's stronger than anything Luffy hit Katakuri with, because Luffy's just stronger at this point, right? And Lucci's attacking at the same exact time. So it's just like, it's hard to see how Katakuri could beat King. It's also just weird. I feel like the Lunarians are just weird because it seems as though their fighting abilities, their actual fighting ability, there's a huge gap between their fighting ability and their durability, right? So it's hard to scale that properly because it's like, they could be getting their ass kicked the entire fight, but ultimately they're not taking damage. So, it's just like, how do you properly scale that? Because you can feel like, okay, the problem is that it's not that they're winning the fight. The problem is just that it's tiresome. You have to beat them up for so long, and they'll keep getting back up. You get what I'm saying? It's just a weird, because it's like, you can talk about Katakuri versus King, but then it's kind of like, okay, well, is it possible, by that logic, well, maybe Katakuri can't even beat, like, the weakest Lunarian, right? Let's say there was a buggy Lunarian, right? Hypothetical. Let's say there was a buggy Seraphim, right? Buggy Seraphim, right? Let's say we're at the point where we've got a buggy Seraphim. Katakuri technically probably couldn't even beat a buggy Seraphim if they all have the same level of durability. No, Katakuri could just capture him in Mochi. That's different. Let's scale it a little bit differently. Who's the weakest Seraphim we've got right now? We got 4. I don't know. A more... I guess, yeah, Katakuri could probably immobilize some Seraphims with Mochi. No, because the thing is that they all have fire. So even a buggy Seraphim, right? Buggy's a warlord. If there was a buggy Seraphim, the buggy Seraphim could probably get out with just fire, right? It's hard to say because it's not... Obviously, Katakuri is much stronger than a buggy Seraphim. It's just like, technically he can't beat him. So it's like, at what point do you rate... What are the parameters of a fight? Is it a ring out fight? If it was a ring out fight, how about this? If it was a ring out fight, then I think Katakuri could beat King. All right, if it was that. But if it was a fight in the sense of they're gonna keep going at it till one of them eventually goes down, then I think King beats Katakuri. You know, just because the Seraphim are such a weird thing to power scale because it's not even about their fighting ability. They can't be hurt by most anything. You know what I'm saying? Friend Harper says he's a conqueror. He can see the future. They can't touch him. That's true. They can't touch him. But at the end of the day, Haki is stated to run out of stamina, right? It has never been stated that the Lunarians run out of stamina. That's not a thing as far as we know. And there's a difference at the end of the day. If we're in a fight, right? If we're in a fight and my ability is I'm really, really good at dodging, and your ability is no matter what, you can't be damaged, you ultimately have the better at a certain point, right? Just because I'm really, really, really good at dodging, at a certain point, if I'm against someone that's close enough to me in ability, I'm probably going to take a hit or two here or there, right? Luffy was able to land some hits before Luffy got advanced observation, right? And Luffy at the time was not as strong as King, right? So Luffy was able to land some hits. Being really, really good at dodging is not as good as just straight up being invulnerable. Because you're still relying on having to dodge and keeping that up. Being invulnerable is just ultimately better, right? Because that means that no matter how much you get hit, it's not going to matter. This other, like, dodging ultimately relies on you're having to keep up something, which is you have to keep up dodging. You get what I'm saying? Kid Smitty94 says Katakuri would see the flame going down in future sight. Lol. I think Kid gets owned, to be honest. Yeah, but King could just never put the flame down, you know. AJK saying I gotta try Mob Psycho anime. Worst case scenario, it'll be a guilty pleasure show. It's a guilty pleasure show, but it's quite good and underrated. I just don't know. It's just you guys don't understand. I have so many things that I have to catch up on at this point. So it's like Mob Psycho doesn't. For me, it's kind of like things that people want me to try. And things that I want to try myself, those go up top because that's stuff that I want to try and people want me to try. Therefore, it could be something good for me and it could be good stuff that I could put out for Manga Morge, right? Then you get down a little bit and it's like, then we're getting stuff like stuff that I kind of want to try and people really want me to try. And then you get to like Mob Psycho, which I don't feel like trying, but people want me to try, right? So it's like Kingdom is up here. Hajime no Ippo is up here. Those are series that I do want to try, but I haven't really got around to it. Jujutsu Kaisen I still want to catch up to. Haven't gotten around to it. There's even certain stuff that I just want to watch for myself, like Legend of the Galactic Heroes. I haven't gotten time for that yet. So Mob Psycho maybe I'll get to it at some point, but it rates low. Lemonade T says King can fly, lol. What are we doing here? The thing with flying in One Piece is just that at the end of the day, I think that with flying... you kind of got to write characters a little bit in character, you know what I mean? Which is that I find that in One Piece, lots of times flying characters just don't... they don't fly that much in fights for some reason. They just don't abuse that ability. I don't know why, but they just don't. We can assume certain things like Katakuri would just stretch up and be able to... like, Katakuri can stretch and stuff like that, right? You know? Sampat Sakesh Revolpati says, Mob is more character work than fights. Fights aren't the focus, but they do slap hard. Psychic is narrative tool. P.S. Will you watch Kaiji? It's great. I've heard good things about Kaiji. I might try. Mob is more character work than fights. Okay, fights aren't the focus, but when they do, they slap hard. I'll think about it. I'm hearing so many good things about Mob Psycho. Quick example I give, by the way, is that Luffy can fly in Gear 4th, but a lot of people, when they're comparing Cracker to Doflamingo, they were like, why doesn't, like, Doflamingo would just be Cracker because Doflamingo can fly. I just don't think he would be written like that, because Luffy can fly, and he didn't use that against Cracker at all, you know, as far as we saw. Jaren Rambo says, when are we getting the Luffy rival video? I was going to wait till we get another chapter on Kid to talk about it. I want to see what this next chapter is. We are getting the trader reveal as far as we know. I want to see what the next chapter is, and then go from there. Because there's two categories of videos, right? There's videos that I want to do generally. There's three categories of videos. There's videos that I want to do that I could drop at any time, pretty much. There's videos that are very relevant to if a new chapter comes out and there's something very relevant that I want to talk about off of that. And finally, there's videos that I want to talk about that I'm waiting on a certain thing to happen in the manga before I feel like it's relevant to talk about. So, for example, the Luffy Rivals video is kind of like that. I want to see Kid again, and then I'll drop that. Okay, guys. Oh my god, it's kind of late. I'm going to call the stream right about here. I'll give it 4 more minutes, and then I'll call the stream. I'll answer like 1 or 2 more questions. I'll just see what's going on there. Ender Anami says, I'm just waiting for the Wano video. Yeah. Steven Rocano asks, would you do ARC first impressions for Kingdom? I think those would be good videos for manga awards that require less investment. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, man. Kind of like Totally Not Marketed. That's something, I think you mentioned that to me before, if you were the same person. That is something I'm considering. I just haven't really started the reading process yet, so I have to wait a little bit. AJK says Morge released the Wano cut. Yeah. Yeah, for any European viewers who are a little confused about the stream times and stuff like that, we had daylight savings here in America, so things are going to be a little different. Baby Morge says, what are your thoughts on the Hunger Games movies? That's so random. I saw the first 2. I read the Hunger Games book when it was getting really popular, because I was in high school and the book was really, really, like, everyone was talking about it. So I thought the Hunger Games book was a really fun read. The movie was solid. I'm going to say I'm not a big Jennifer Lawrence fan. I think that I don't get why so many people are Jennifer Lawrence fans. But she was solid in that movie, I guess. And besides that, I got nothing to say. Majenko says no Melee Morge channel. No. I did pick up Melee again recently. I played a few games. I'm very rusty. Virgil Hawkins is asking if I'm interested in reading Slam Dunk. I might do Vagabond first. You're saying Vagabond mangaka if you don't know. I might do Vagabond first, and then if I really, really love the author's work, I might do Slam Dunk. Just because I'm invested in basketball doesn't mean I would like Slam Dunk, because I'm generally very hesitant of sports series. When I was big into tennis, I did read Prince of Tennis, and that was fun. But reading sports manga is not... Look, I tried Haikyuu, and I'm gonna be... Okay, let me list out the reasons I didn't care for Haikyuu real quick, which is that... HK says, I think people will love the Wano vid. Again, my fear is basically I just don't want that to be what defines the channel going forward. That's the only thing. That's the only thing. I don't want people flocking to me being like, hey, we didn't like this in Egghead. Morge, when are you dropping a video like this on Egghead? That's not the type of content that I want to create over and over for One Piece, right? So that's the only thing. Again, if you need a reference, the main thing I'm waiting on is basically I want One Piece to be in a really exciting hype spot, kind of. And I feel like that would be a great point to drop the Wano video, just as a contrast sort of thing, if that makes sense. So I can keep making videos really talking about the things I'm liking about the current stuff while dropping a video in between talking about what I didn't care for as much in the previous arc. That's it. AJK says, don't become too comfortable, Morge. Controversy builds a big platform. Imagine if you weren't bold with all of your previous videos. Where would you be right now? Because of your great perspective, we love you. I appreciate that a lot, honestly. But at the same time, I'm aware of basically, I'm aware of of what direction certain things in or what people expect of me could be, and I still want to be true to what I want to be making. You know what I mean? That's pretty much it. Black Lexus, I need to see this Morge Fox and him laser cam for 5 minutes straight. I don't know why people think that, because I think you'd be very surprised. I don't use the laser as Fox. I do use it occasionally if I'm playing a Peach and only a Peach, but that's just because it's really I find it really hard to just attack a Peach, but I find it so easy if Peach is attacking me. That's pretty much it. Maybe if I was playing competitive, like if I was playing for ranked or something, maybe I would laser against Jigglypuff too, but I find, at least if a Jigglypuff was ledge camping me or something. But you guys might be surprised. I'm not a very patient, not even patient. I'm not going to say I'm like an aggressive player either. It's just that I just don't have any. I never use ranged characters in games, pretty much, if that makes sense. That's just not my preference to play. That's not to say I'm like an aggressive player. I just prefer to, like in a fighting game, I just prefer a character that's fat. Okay, let's see if this makes sense. In fighting games, at the very, very least, I like characters that are quick, that can get in and out. That's pretty much it. But I don't like characters that have projectiles, because that just, in my head, that overcomplicates what I'm trying to do, if that makes sense. So it's not even that. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. I wouldn't say I'm like super in your face or something like that. I can't press buttons all that fast, I guess. But I like characters that can get in and out quickly, that can move back and forth quickly. I've always had a preference for that. That's pretty much it. Yeah, the thing about Blackleg is talking about, the thing about Peach, at least that I found, and again, I'm not like a great player, so this is low level perspective at the very least, but for me, I've just found that it's so much, there's just such a huge disparity in how much easier it is to have Peach trying to move forward at the very least, and then you can do so much against her easily, versus if I'm just trying to run at her, it's such a fucking pain. Because if you're trying to go at Peach, it's like you're neutral. Take your neutral air out of the equation, right? If you're trying to just straight up approach, right? If she's willing to move forward, then it becomes a game, right? But trying to run at Peach, you just have to come at it with such either really spaced full hop angles or something like that with a back air. Like you gotta work around so much, right, to make sure you just don't get CC whatever, basically, right? You can do drills, but even drill is a little risky. You can do everything's just you can be really safe about it, right? But you gotta be fast and space properly and jump properly and do all this stuff. Whereas if she's coming to you, it's so much easier. Oh, my point on Haikyuu? Yeah, let me finish that, and then I'll call the stream on that. Jacob Patino says, what is S-Croc's fruit if Logias can't be made? Maybe there is no S-Croc. If Logias can't be made, that is a really, really interesting point. I didn't even think about that there might just not be an S-Crocodile because he wasn't able to replicate it. That would be such a nerf, because, as far as we know, Crocodile's not exactly a hockey beast, unless he was in his prime or something. Oh, Killing Papa says, before you end stream, update on Dark Souls 3. All right, let me give two quick thoughts. Haikyuu, for me, I just couldn't get into. I think it's one of those things where I would really have to watch enough to really sink into and just accept their obsession with volleyball and take it seriously. Because for me, it's like, I watched a few episodes and they're hyping up this dude, the Sasuke of the series, the king of the court. They all chant he's the king of the court. Wow, this guy's the king of the court. He's so he's so arrogant, and he has this presence as though he's above everybody. And it's just this middle school kid who's a little taller than other people, and he doesn't do anything really. He's the guy that sets people, right? So in volleyball, he's the setter because he's tall. So they pass him the ball. He's the person who pushes the ball up for somebody else to spike it. And I felt like they're bending over backwards to explain why this makes him the title King of the Court, when to me, intuitively, that's that's not a badass role. You're basically the court bitch. You're the guy that sets up other people, but it makes him the king of the court because it's like, well, he controls the entire court. Volleyball courts have like, I don't know, like 3 people. How many people? How many people were playing a volleyball court? I don't know. On your side, I guess you could, at a stretch, you could say he's kind of like the point guard role. So I kind of get it, but all he, it's just pushing the ball up so someone can hit it. And here's the crazy thing, which is that like he gets hyped up as the king of the court so much, and then they reveal that like, and you know what? Everyone used to hate him and his arrogance because he actually set the balls too high. He would set the balls in a way that no one could even jump up and get them. And that was kind of what he was known for. And I'm just like, man, so why didn't everyone just... So why is he a good player then? So it's like, okay, so they're really hyping up this one dude. His job is just to go like this. And when he goes like this, he would do it in a way that no one could even fucking get the ball. And this guy's like, I don't know, the best middle school player in Japan or something like that. And yeah, that was pretty much, I don't know. It was just hard for me to take it seriously. Because it's like, okay, with anime in general, I understand. I'm an anime fan, right? You have to give in a little bit, right? You have to give in. You have to just, in anime, everything is overhyped, over-dramatized. Everyone makes a huge deal out of everything, right? Every little moment, in like, everyone has cool titles and epithets, and like, just everything just gets very over. Everything is over. It's hyperbolized, right? It's a very fantasy world. But for me, it's just like, it's volleyball. It's like high school volleyball. It's like 9th grade high school volleyball or something like that. And actually go back down 1 year, so it's actually middle school volleyball. That's where I think that they started or something like that. And they're just going crazy over this king of the court. It's volleyball. And he doesn't do anything cool, like spikes and shit. He's just the dude that goes like this. They also call him really tall. He's not that tall. I looked up how much things are in centimeters. He's not that tall. So he just goes like this. And then everybody actually also says that he does this and the ball goes too high so no one can hit it. But they still call him the king of the... I mean, apparently he's called the king of the court because he's too arrogant or something like that. Like, setting the ball too high means you're too arrogant. I don't know. It's 2 steps too far into over-dramatization. And here's the thing. Because, like, when I read like Prince of Tennis, I can give in to like how garbage, ridiculous that stuff is, because at the very least it feels like in that world, tennis is treated as like this anime thing where like characters can do all this superhuman stuff and stuff like that, and tennis is this huge deal. Everyone always challenges each other to tennis in that world. In Haikyuu, it's kind of the opposite, where I'm like, okay, so everyone's making a huge deal out of this. This guy is over dramatized to fuck. His role is over dramatized to hell. All of this stuff, so much obsession over volleyball and like, I don't know, all like this, the anime-esqueness of that volleyball. I'm like, okay, so I guess they're treating volleyball as though it's really, really important in this world. But here's the crazy thing, which is that it's volleyball in the Haikyuu world is about as significant as volleyball in the real world, which is that it's not. The main character, Hinata, his school doesn't even have a volleyball team. He had to make one. There's no interest in volleyball. It's just this side sport that nobody really plays. It's like it's the equivalent of volleyball in the real world. It's the side sport, and then in the realm of the side sport, there's just so much over dramatized. It was just too much. It was just too much for me to like take it. I'd really tried to take a step back and just be like, look, it's an anime, it's whatever. But they just called him the king of the court too many times. It was just like every step. It was like, okay, they're really dramatizing volleyball, huge deal. Oh wait, it's not a huge deal. Nobody in his school even plays it. He had to force random people to join his school club to make him like make a volleyball team for their school. Okay, so volleyball's not popular in this world the same way it's not popular in the real world. Okay. Then they go to a volleyball tournament. Volleyball, which is basically a joke of a sport in this world, is being treated as basically like they're facing up against this other team. They're hyping up this dude, the king of the court, like this anime Yonko tier character or something showing up. It's like, why? He's a little tall. What does he do? He does the lamest thing in volleyball from a layman's perspective, which is this, and that's his role. King of the court. I'm like, okay, you know what? I can rock with it. Fine, that's whatever. And then they get to the start of the first arc or whatever, and, you know, turns out he's on Hinata's team, and it's like, you know what? The crazy reveal about him is that even when he's doing this, he wasn't even doing it in a helpful way to his teammates. Everyone actually hated him for doing this. And the ball would go in a way that no one could fucking hit it, which is the only thing you need to do in volleyball. And so at that point, I just lost. I was like, what the fuck, man? What am I reading? Why are they getting it? It's just too, I don't know. Do you guys get it? Do you guys get what I'm saying? I think maybe if I really, 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 really got into it, maybe I would be able to take it a little more seriously. But it's just like, the first few episodes lost me. That's it. I believe, that's the thing. That's him. That's the thing. All right. I believe it's a good series. I really, really do. I definitely believe it's a good series. Okay? Because so many people say it, people whose opinions I trust. I believe it's a really good series, and the things that people have described to me about the series are really, I can understand why it would be a really good series, right? Even just the fact that you got the main character on the same team as the guy who should have been his rival, right? Traditionally would be his rival, but twist, they're on the same team. I think that that's really cool. I thought I was cool. I was surprised to see that. I thought that was cool. I kind of knew that was something that happened just because I knew gists of it, and I'd seen those two together, but I didn't know it was something that would happen that early, okay? To me, the only thing that's really holding me back is just that it's hard to get into, you know, it's one thing where it's, you know, it's a world of superpowered characters and stuff like that, and they're pirates with special abilities, so you're kind of getting into that, or they're ninjas, or they're, you know, soul reapers and stuff. You're kind of dealing with, okay, supernatural world with crazy high-stakes stuff. At the end of the day, there's islands at stake, there's all sorts of powerful abilities, ancient weapons, shit. Like, you're giving into the flow of this fantasy world. When it's kind of like they're treating volleyball as, it's just hard. It's just hard. That's it. It's just hard. It's just hard. Teddy says him being called king of the court is not a compliment. I know, and that's part of what made me lose it, which is just like, okay, so they're really animeizing this dude who's hitting the ball up because he's the king of the court, right? At the very least, the show wanted you to believe that, like, him doing that is enough to make him be called the king of the court, right? This, okay? Then when it's revealed that, you know what? No, it's the arrogance that the overplay. It's so over. It's just like, in fact. It was the arrogance that he had to hit the ball in a way that was too high for other people to hit it. The sheer arrogance. He acts as though he's the almighty king of the court, looking down upon everybody else. It's like, dude, all he's doing is this shit. It's just like, oh my God. It was just too difficult for me to take seriously. I think that was where I drew the line for myself. I was just like, I just don't think I can take this anime seriously. That's it. That's it. That's all I got. Hazard and Gibson says, then you should watch Food Wars. Same concept, but with cooking, just like HelloFresh. Here's the thing. Food Wars, from the stuff that I've seen of it, it gives into the absurdity of it, right? It gives into the, like, characters have orgasms and stuff when they eat food. It's a very fantasized, like, it treats the series as basically very, very exaggerated and everything like that. Haikyuu, as I understand, is a more grounded series with more real focus on characters, character development, character writing, stuff like that. Which means that I'm trying to take everything, you know, as a more serious story. Which is why it's hard when it's being written the way it is. You know what I mean? That's just it. I mean, the way I'd compare it to is like Ping Pong, I guess, the animation. I love Ping Pong, the animation, as a anime, and I did feel like Ping Pong, the animation, it did get really extreme with its depictions of ping pong players and everything like that, but I think from the start I just always felt as though it was more grounded in some senses, and then in other senses when it really, really got very fantastical, it was mostly visual stuff, right? Like, visually depicting how characters see each other in the scheme of competition, right? And that felt more artistic, if that makes sense, right? Seeing Peko begin to take wings and take flight, seeing that champion #1 dude in Japan, I forget that dude, seemed like a daunting monster for the Chinese player who begins seeing visions of himself being sent back home. I guess that's all I'm saying. I feel like the writing just felt more subtle in ping pong. In Haikyuu, it's just hard for me to take it too seriously right now. Maybe if I gave it another go, I'd be able to appreciate, because I know it's a well-written series. Everybody has said that. I definitely believe that. It's just, it's hard for me to get past the initial. It was a show I was watching and I was like, this just feels too much for me to take seriously. That's it. That's all I got. Blue Lock says, okay, Boo Boo says Blue Lock is fun, but it's far more dramatized than Haikyuu LMAO. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if a sports series is more dramatized and is kind of leaning into its ridiculousness, then I'm kind of more with it, honestly. Jacob says, I don't think anyone can watch a few episodes of anything and judge it accurately. I would agree, so maybe I'll try Haikyuu again. It's just not a series that I was ever interested in the first place. Blacklug says they need to make an anime about competitive Melee players. You know what's funny? So I watched both documentaries, right? Smash Documentary 1, Smash Documentary, the metagame, right? The first one, the second one, right? With the first one, I think it was just the right amount of acknowledging that, hey, this is just a video game, right? But this group of people got really, really competitive into it. And, like, to a point where, like, you really showed how much passion people had for this little game, how it's starting to blow up. And to the point that people started picking up these titles. Like, yeah, they started calling this kid Ken the King of Smash and stuff like that, right? But it was established that people called him the King of Smash, and he was the king of this little community. But there's a sort of line, right? Whereas with metagame is exactly what I'm talking about with the opening of metagame. And mad respect to Samus and everything he did for the Melee community and how much effort went into the second documentary metagame and everything like that. But when you're opening up metagame, right? This is exactly what I'm talking about. It suddenly the sense of self-awareness of what's really being covered is completely gone. Right? It's like, yeah, we called the best Smash players the 5 gods for a little bit, but it's literally opening with this epic sort of animated sequence and this action movie voiceover, like, the gods, some players so great that they are far superior, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like creating these shiny visual logos and stuff. And at that point, it's like the self-awareness of the first one, it's just gone. It's like, this is a video game. It was a relatively very small video game in the grand scheme of things. These players, they're really good, but even players in the Smash community itself were never like, holy shit, the gods are like literal gods or something. And like the narrative, nowhere in metagame is it treating it as though, you know, what it is, which is recovering a small video game competitive scene. It was an era where it was ruled by 5 players who were way better than everybody else, but the lengths it went to really over dramatize everything and just actually talk about these players as though they were just godlike beings practically far above, you know, mere mortals pretty much. It just went too far and it lost kind of the grounded sense that the first one had. Does that make sense? And that's kind of my feeling with yeah, you know. See if that compares. Remix King says, if you understood the basics of the sport, it helps. Yeah, maybe that's true. S-Baller10 says they were called the 5 gods, ? Haha. Yeah, see, that's the thing. You can't really show metagame to other people outside of the Smash scene without them calling it cringe because, again, there's just no self-awareness of what's actually being covered, right? It's like, the first game, it's cool to see that, hey, it's such a small community, but, like, people started to get so competitive over it. People started getting nicknames. It started really becoming like a really rampant narrative or whatever that like, hey, there's this guy Ken. He's the king. No one can beat him. Oh, this guy Muted King. He's like a robot. Like, how's he so good at this game? It was all within the context of what a niche, cute little community it's got going that's turned into something with like a lot of heart and a lot of narratives and a lot of cool storylines and everything like that and really interesting figures, right? The other one was just like, I'm covering something really grand and epic and legendary and the gods of this game, this amazing game that basically is the most deep and complex game ever, and these are the 5 players that ruled over it and were invincible and godlike. It's just very different. You guys get what I'm saying? All right, guys. Virgil Hawkins says, to be fair, most Haikyuu fans didn't know much about volleyball before starting it. That's the other thing. Should I need to know volleyball before starting it? I don't know. All right, guys. H. Vendal says, high school volleyball being treated as life or death is weird. At least acknowledge the absurdity like Cobra Kai. I guess that's where I'm at, but, you know. Yami Kami-sama says, yeah, the PPMD book scene was too much. Yeah, that's the thing. It was like, it was just really trying to elevate, certain things to absurd levels of, you know, trying to treat it as though it's I feel like the first one, it almost organically started to feel like an anime, the way that we organically saw narratives come up. And then the other one, it leaned too hard into like, this guy's like an anime character, and you know, he had an anime sort of awakening by reading this book and realizing how to that was the key to beating manga. It's just like, come on now. AJK says thanks. I'm saying thanks to you, but you do you, bro. We still love you and keep it coming. We'll be with you on your side all the way. Thank you for all your hard work and contribution. One love. Okay, thank you overall. Thanks. Appreciate it. I might try Haikyuu again, but it's just not high up my list. Alright, guys. Okay, Virgil Hawkins. I hear you. I will try Haikyuu again at some point. Sorry if my stream rubs some Haikyuu fans, or my rant rubs some Haikyuu fans the long way. It's just my honest thoughts. Just what it is. I might eat my words the next time I try the series. Because there's been other series I've tried it initially and been like, nah, not for me. And then later on I go back and I'm like, fuck, that was great. It's just the way it is. Alright, guys. I will talk to you later. Wait, last thing I'll say is this real quick. Papa Ducksucker says, the reason people want to get into Melee was the first one, but the Five Gods era was a lot more interesting. The last thing I'll say is just this, which is that, yeah, it's a shame if you know Melee. And again, Samox, nothing bad to say about him at all, because what he did for the Melee community, he is the single most impactful person on the Melee community ever. Fizzy is maybe second, right? But I think the Five Gods era of Melee, easily the most interesting era of Melee ever, by far. It is a shame that I think he leaned too hard into it that time and didn't maybe because it had to feel distinct from the first one, but I think he leaned too hard into it that time, and like, because it's such a it felt dramatic for Melee viewers. The Five Gods, you know, it was a really interesting setup, a really, keep using the word anime, but it felt like imagine, you know, the One Piece world has the Yonko. The Melee world really had, instead of 4 pirates, let's say 5 emperors that basically were on a different level than everybody else for a long time, and it was really interesting to see them go at each other once in a while, right? It was a really, really, really great time for the scene. Probably the most interesting era for Melee. From a viewer standpoint, probably. From a narrative standpoint. And it's just that I think he leaned too hard into the notion that, yeah, this is really, like, this just has to be portrayed as the most epic as possible. Because when you overplay how epic and how grandiose it really is, in the grand scheme of things, you kind of lose viewers who are kind of like even Melee fans are kind of just going to be like, yeah, you're making this a bit too cringe at this point, because it you know, it was a big deal for us, but at the end of the day, like I can't even think of, like, take like a world famous sport, right? Forget Melee, like forget a little video game, take like a world famous sport. If you did like a documentary on like 90s basketball, right? And we're like the 5 gods, or like 80s/90s basketball, and we're like the 5 gods, Michael Jordan, and then like this glowing icon and stuff, something like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, these players, like, who the fuck else? Hakeem Olajuwon. These players, they ruled that era of basketball. So untouchable in their games. It's just like, you lose people. You lose people. You it's overrated. Like, it's overrating something. Oh wait, last thing. Yeah, Dark Souls 3 update. I'll give the update. Let me give the update. Started Dark Souls 3. I am currently stuck. I'm literally stuck. Yesterday, I got this is the longest I've ever taken for any boss ever. I'm stuck at the Abyss Watchers. I'm literally stuck. I'm stuck. Here's the thing though. I found out something because I got the sense after playing them long enough, I could see myself beating them. It would just be really, really long. I went to Reddit. I was like, am I under I wanted to see what level you normally beat the Abyss Watchers at, right? So I've missed one area. So I am under leveled by most people's standards for the Abyss Watchers. Most people are saying Abyss Watchers you should do probably 35, level 35 to 40, so basically level 35 up. I'm currently level 24, and I'm at the Abyss Watchers, right? So I'm level 24. I've been hitting my head against the wall against the Abyss Watchers. I just feel like I don't do enough damage, and I feel like I die for very few mistakes. Basically, like my health is too low. So I do feel like I can feel it. I feel like I was underleveled. I did finally go and check. I am underleveled by most people's standards. There's an area that I've already missed, basically. I went past an area. There's an area called like a cathedral or something like that that most people tend to do first. Then they move on to Farron and the Abyss Watchers, okay? So I don't know how much of the difficulty is me feeling like I'm very underleveled and I should have maybe 10, 15 more levels than I'm at right now and be trying them. But at the same time, I did see some comments saying, well, technically you can do the Abyss Watchers before the Cathedral and stuff like that. You would be a lower level, but some people are like, well, I can do it at like level 25 or something. So like there are people I've seen that are saying that they can do it at a lower level, but it seems like the general vast majority consensus of people did it at a much higher level, like 35, 40, 40 plus, basically. I see some people saying, oh, I'm level 47, I'm stuck at the Abyss Watchers and stuff like that. So that has me thinking, I don't know. It's a weird point because I'm like, either I could keep doing this over and over till I can play it pretty much perfectly and then I can beat it at the level I'm at, or I go do the whole other level area first, get my levels up to like at least 30 something, and then I don't know, because this is the first time I've ever felt like I played Sekiro and I played Dark Souls, right? This is the first time I've ever felt stuck at a place, right? At Sekiro, I felt like there were a couple bosses that were really difficult and took me over 2 hours to beat, right? Headless Ape, I remember I had to take a break, come back the next day, and then I beat it. This is the first one, like, I spent a good amount of time Sunday. I don't even know. I didn't even keep track about the amount of time, but it was definitely more than 2 hours. I was just stuck at the Abyss Watchers. So this is the difference when people are like, what's harder, Dark Souls 3 or Sekiro or something like that. Sekiro, you can't really get to something and be under-leveled, really, right? Basically, from what I'm seeing from everybody else, I am at a very low level to take on the Abyss Watchers. So it's like, how do you even rate that difficulty, right? Because if I beat them right now, it would be harder than doing anything in Sekiro. But if I went by the normal path, then maybe I would find it easier. So I don't know. I kind of have to decide. I really don't want to drop it right now, though. I'm saying, like, drop them, go do the Cathedral area, then come back, do the Abyss Watchers, because it would feel like defeat. And it's just like, I feel like it's doable right now. It's just really hard. So I think I'm just going to keep at it and just try and do it right now as is, because it would just feel too, like, I'm at it. I've already spent I've invested so much effort and mental time, basically, trying to beat it. It would just feel like so sad leaving it, doing other stuff, coming back when I'm stronger, and then beating it rather than just, I don't know. I feel like I want to finish it because that's where I'm at right now, you know? Wrench Dodger 2000 says 2 words, 3 more, skill issue. B Money says, I did it at a low level. Look, some of you might have done it at a lower level and everything like that. I see some other people saying they did it before the Cathedral. Maybe I'm not at that level. Maybe I'm not at the level. Like, saying skill-wise that I'm not at that level. But I'm having a lot of trouble with Abyss Watchers. AWOL Forces, how did he beat Sekiro but trouble with Abyss Watchers? Again, like, if I did, how much of it is, I don't want to say, like, all of its level. I don't know, right? But I know that I'm at a point where I feel like I've got the boss down quite a bit, but I just do so little damage to him over the course of it that, like, I feel like that's the bigger factor. So, again, from what I'm reading online from other people, I'm somewhere between 10 to 15 levels lower than most people take on the Abyss Watchers. But you guys are saying that you can, a lot of you have done it before the Cathedral, so I don't know. I don't know. Wait, let me read your comments on it. Maybe you guys got some tips. Am I trying summons? I don't do summons. The thing is that, okay, my thing is basically if what do you call, if this is, if it's normal to do the Abyss Watchers at like in your, like at like level 20 something, like 24, so I'm at 24 right now. If it's normal to do Abyss Watchers about there, then I think that they're clearly, to me, way harder than any Dark Souls boss by far. Like, by far. By a huge amount. And then they're harder than any Sekiro boss as well, to me. So, yeah, I don't know what to say. 8Baller 10 says patience is a big part of it. Yeah, I don't know. Alright, guys. Hopefully next time I'll have gotten through them. And I'll talk to you guys later. Peace. Oh, wait, last thing. Deadbread says, are you using NPC summons? That's expected to go solo as a flex. No, I don't think it's a flex. Because I'm really not that type of person. Like, if I have an advantage, I'm gonna take it. It's just that it feels too different. If I literally have another physical, like, to me it's different than like if I used a better weapon or like a temporary buff or something. Just having another person that's just like running into, although with the Abyss Watchers I technically do have that, because I have that other Abyss Watcher dude that wakes up and then the others fight him, so I technically do have that, but that's built into the fight. It just feels too weird to me to have like to literally summon somebody else to help do work with me. So I don't know. That's just different. Okay. All right, guys. For real, I will talk to you all later.